What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Blazers Uprise postgame show powered by BetUS. Today, your Portland Trailblazers get an impressive road victory. Maybe their most impressive road victory of the season, as they beat Damian Lillard and the Bucks 105-102. Anfernee Simons leading the way with 28 points, hits a clutch go-ahead and one layup in the final minute to put the Blazers on top. And the Blazers shut down Dame, only 16 points from him tonight. Shut down pretty much the rest of the team. Giannis Antetokounmpo got his 31 for him. And AJ Green, 21 off the bench. The Blazers forgot he was a three-point shooter, even though that's all he does. Outside of that, really good defensive effort from your Portland Trailblazers. Eric, how is your weekend treating you?
Well, not too bad. I kind of like the early post-game show. Won't be too late of a night. Excited to have you all call in as well. Hopefully we get some more participation with that. I know you don't like the earlier game story, but no. I kind of like them.
Because I got to decide whether or not I'm going to the gym after this at like 9:30 at night, which I don't like to do. I like to go a little earlier. So, kind of messing up my New Year's resolutions on the fourth day with these early tip-off times. We got a bunch of them.
So you can't go before 5 p.m. on a Saturday?
I was busy, man. I was meeting with my guy, Krish, and I was working on some various things. And, I'm not a morning gym person, okay? I'm barely alive in the mornings to begin with. So, short window of time there. But, good win. I mean, I can't remember the road wins because they're very few of them. The Blazers were like 3-13, 3-14, something like that coming into this game on the road. They actually are a 500 team at home, but they get a road win. And this team seems to get up for the Milwaukee Bucks with it being Dame. And, obviously we know the history with Damian Lillard, and I don't need to go into that. But last year they beat him at home, and they were very competitive against them on the road. And then tonight they beat them on the road. And this is a Bucks team that is playing better than they were at the start of the season, although just lost to the Nets and just lost to the Blazers.
Back-to-back, that's not a good week for them so far.
Yeah, so maybe they're back to their old ways. But good road win, man. Probably the best road win of the year. You had some good performances. But you could tell that Anfernee Simons was trying to put the team on his back, and he hit some shots to start this game, had a rough stretch there in the fourth, but hit the final go-ahead clutch layup to win this one. Eric, just kind of your initial impressions from this game. What really stood out to you?
I thought they competed well. Thought it was a pretty good effort game from them. I thought, we'll have to get into this, but I feel like Anfernee almost had to take over because their offense was not particularly schemed well tonight. But luckily he came through in the second half with 23 of his 28 points or something like that. Yeah. And then. I do want to talk about, too, it ended up working out, but why are you not making defensive substitutions in the last couple possessions? Like I said, it ends up working out, so it's hard to question it, but why aren't you subbing offense for defense like we saw Nate Bjorkgren do in a game when he was coach? So all those things make me wonder if Chauncey was coaching one of those games, if it was close, if he would have done that like Nate did. Overall, I felt like outside of, like you mentioned, just completely leaving the best shooter in the NBA wide open a bunch of times, that the defensive game plan was pretty good. And, I don't know if this says more about the Blazers or the Bucks, but they just have not looked good the last couple games. And the Blazers, like I said, competed, and you can beat teams that aren't playing well when you just give a little effort. So,
yeah, I mean, I'll just say this on their end: it feels like Dame was not aggressive enough in this game. It feels like he could have gotten some more threes or at least tried to get going from behind the arc in order to stretch that defense out. Toumani Camara is a really good defender. So going up against him one-on-one, we saw that in the final play, and he passed to the corner out of bounds because Bobby Portis was cutting. I don't know why Bobby Portis was cutting from the corner in a 1-4 flat, Eric. That is one of the most baffling things I've ever seen because he's just cutting into his teammates and into traffic there. But, I'd like to see Dame take the shot there, right? He's very, very clutch, and it just feels like there was times in this game where Dame took a back seat. Giannis kind of got his. He had 31 points, but he missed a lot of lay-ins, it felt like, that he should have made. That maybe you can say good defense, but it felt like Giannis was struggled finishing around the rim, and he also didn't get to the line. So props to the Blazers. Only 2 Milwaukee Bucks players shot free throws in this game. That was Dame, that was Giannis. Giannis shot 4, Dame shot 5, so they only shot 9 as a team. We'll pull up the team stats here. You only give up 9 free throws, and you win the paint points battle against a team led by Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, that's a win right there.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the other main factors in this game was they're a team that lives at the free throw line, especially Giannis and Dame, and to not get into foul trouble, to not get in the penalty, to not give them a bunch of extra points at the free throw line, I thought was a huge factor in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, AJ Green kept them in this game for the most part, 7 for 13 from 3, and he made more than half of the Bucks' threes because the rest of the team was only 6 for 28 from behind the arc, so really bad shooting night. Nobody else shot the 3-ball well. When the Blazers are able to defend the 3-point line and not give up a bunch of fast break points, they're in a lot of games, and a lot of the fast break points will come off the Blazers' own sloppiness and their turnovers, and the Blazers turned over the ball 17 times in this game, but Milwaukee, they got 18 fast break points, but we've seen teams with many more fast break points. It's kind of fascinating to look at the other side of that graphic, though, the Blazers and their pace. They're supposed to be a fast-paced team. They're supposed to be a team that gets out and runs, and 6 fast break points is really, really bad. But you won in other areas, you know what I mean? You had some good defensive performances. Toumani played some great defense in this one. I think Scoot's defense lately has been legitimately good. He's been competing. He hasn't been getting beat off the dribble like he was earlier in his career. He's starting to get the lost steals, deflections, starting to make some defensive plays. He stripped Giannis of a ball when he was in the paint. I mean, he also got a block in this game. So you're starting to see some guys start to really figure it out defensively on an individual level. I think the Blazers' bad defensive nights lately have come from somebody not fulfilling their responsibilities on a possession where maybe you have a couple good defensive efforts, but somebody doesn't rotate or somebody doesn't box out, somebody doesn't help. So, you can take a lot of good out of that in terms of young players starting to really play well defensively. Camara, of course, has been great defensively all year, but there's just times where he takes it to another level and is kind of a game wrecker, and I do think he had a big reason and why Dame was only 5 for 15 in this game. It's just nice to see some of the other guys do it, especially Scoot. I've been really impressed with his defense lately.
Yeah, and Sharpe guarded Dame a lot in the first half, so I want to mention that he did a pretty good job as well. They didn't hide him as much as they normally do, so good to see him step up to that challenge. I will say that Scoot at least 3 times was responsible for AJ Green getting a wide open 3, missing the rotation.
You always nitpick him.
No,
you always mess him.
No, he has improved in all the areas you mentioned, but his off-ball defense, he's still, especially zone. I hate when they play zone when he's in the game because he does not know what to do when the ball goes to one of the corners in that top of the zone, and so that is I don't understand why we play zone at all, really, but that's one thing we have to fix. But, yeah, I mean, overall, this team played great defense, and I think it was a really good effort from multiple people, including Scoot outside of those mistakes off ball. But yeah, his on ball and just his ability to. He's one of the best on the team at reading. He didn't really do it in this game, but lately, reading like passes coming from the backcourt to the front court and getting his hands on them or getting steals that way. And like you said, he's been doing a much better job of stripping the ball without fouling. Yeah, it's good to see his progression there.
For me, I don't like because Chess talking about getting lost in the zone. We shouldn't be playing zone. We should not be playing zone. It is not good to develop these young players playing zone. Like either they know how to play zone or they don't, or they got a feel for it or they don't. And if they don't, it's not even a big deal. It's the NBA. Zone gets picked apart in the NBA. Most of the time you will go to it for 1 to 2 possessions as a change up, but you don't rely upon it and should not rely upon it. And for somebody like Scoot, G League Ignite, how much zone did they play? You know, I don't know if they played as much zone as your typical college program because zone defense is a much bigger thing in college. So I do think that our zone is trash and guys seem to get lost or get confused about their responsibilities within that zone. And I think that applies to multiple players. But the thing is in the NBA, if you run a 2-3 zone, right, and you can spread the floor and get the zone shifted over to one side and swing the ball back to the other side, you got wide open shooters or easy attacks on closeouts. And it's maybe a little better to run zone when you have Klingon at the rim so he can stay around the rim as part of the bottom of the 2-3 zone. But, you know, the zone stuff is kind of messy. I just like the competitiveness that Scoot is showing on that side of the floor right now. I like that he's not getting beat off the dribble. I like that he's getting some deflections, getting some hands on balls, right? But the off-ball defense, definitely an area to improve upon. You don't expect necessarily a 20-year-old guard to be locked in terms of their off-ball rotation starting their career. So hopefully something that he can improve upon. I do think he gives really good effort when he maybe gets stuck out of position to try and recover. I think he closes out really hard, sometimes maybe a little too hard, but he does try and make up for it, which is better than some other guys that just stand there and watch, Brook Lopez shoot a 3 after they can't corral a loose ball.
Yeah. I think Scoot's better. I thought the same thing with Sharpe. His first couple of years, it's like when you just play defense off of just like basketball plays. Like Sharpe was good at like recovering for a chase down block or blocking someone from behind, even if he was out of position. Yeah, because it's just using your athleticism to go get the ball or whatever. And I think Scoot's positives on that end, are his quickness, his strength, his like he's kind of built like a rock, so you can use that kind of stuff to his advantage. So I think in fast break situations or players like driving down the lane and stuff like that, those are going to be where Scoot's at his best defensively. And so the more you can put him in those situations, and I almost think it's like bad to like hide him off ball right now. Like I want him like playing more on ball, like especially if he's not going to be playing 40 minutes a game like you're making Anfernee play. Like why hide him at all? Just like put him out there on the thing. And you could argue that he's just going to get screened to death and he can't fight through screens very well yet, so that might be a problem. But I'd rather him be making plays on the ball or around the ball than have him get lost off ball. So I'd much rather see him in more spots to make more steals and blocks and stuff. Yeah,
absolutely. But overall, good defensive effort. Toumani continues to really impress on that end, and it's fun to watch the way that dude plays defense.
That charge he took on Giannis was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, because so many guys will step out of Giannis's way because they're scared to take that charge. And listen, I don't blame players right. that don't want to stand in front of that dude when he's at full speed in transition. And we've heard, I think it was Robert Williams had comments on Toumani's charge-taking ability. Maybe it was somebody else. Maybe it was Chauncey. I don't know. But there was a comment about Toumani and the way he takes charges and what goes into being a good charge taker. And one of the things that we heard heard from someone was, you got to be a little crazy to take the types of charges that he does. Yeah, you got to be a little crazy to stand in front of that dude when he's at full speed. But Toumani does it, falls, bounces back up. I mean, his charge taking is insane, man. And it's just funny because that charge he took on Giannis, you could see it coming from a mile away. And it seemed like actually one of the easier charges to like set up for and take. I just think Giannis is used to a lot of guys just like kind of opening the door like, no, I don't want to be a part of that.
But there was a play right before that where Giannis, there was two Blazers. I forgot who the other one was, but Toumani was the second guy. And Giannis is really talented at sidestepping or like just barely missing those charges and using his long arms to go around them. So I was like, okay, Giannis is just going to sidestep him again or go around him because that's what he usually does. And so I was impressed that Toumani actually guessed right on which way Giannis was going to go. But yeah, you could say it was easy because like it looked like the most easiest charge ever, but Giannis had just gone right around him when he tried to take a charge a play or two before that.
Yeah. The thing is Giannis, he reaches a certain speed where it's a little harder to sidestep at that size.
Right.
And that was one of those where he was just like, he was going as quick as he could to the rim, right? That's the time you take that charge, and he was a little bit out of control. So I mean, that's just the play that it's the embodiment of Toumani Camara. I think if he was on a better team, he would get a lot more love for potential second team all defense. It's really hard as a wing to make first team all defense because the best defenders are usually rim protectors that can really control the paint defensively. But, you know, on this Blazer team, he's probably not going to come particularly close to second team all defense, but I don't think that's due to him not deserving to be in the conversation. I think it's due to he's on the Portland Trail Blazers. He's in the Pacific Northwest. You know, they're a tanking team at the end of the year, right? So he's not going to get probably the love that he deserves for that conversation.
All I will say, he just was he was one of the runners-up for Defensive Player of the Month this last month.
Yeah. So maybe he does. Maybe he does get love. Hopefully he does get the love because he deserves it for sure.
Sharpe and I think it was Denny, right? Sharpe and Denny, I think were honorable mention for the Player of the Month too.
I think that was of the week.
Was that of the week? Maybe
I think it was of the week. Yeah, because I don't think they'd be in Player of the Month combos, unfortunately. But yeah, Player of the Week, I'm pretty sure is what it was. So, yeah, man. I mean, it's hard to even tell. Like, Toumani makes so many good plays. It's like, could he still be getting better defensively? I mean,
people were saying it was month because it was the end of January.
What? End of January?
I mean, into December, so that they were announcing all the end of month stuff. So yeah, they were both for Player of the Month.
Was that Player of the Month? That's interesting. So I don't know how they were in Player of the Month convos, considering we were 3-10 in December.
Yeah, usually well, I guess that's the Player of the Week, except for that one random time when Melo won it. Remember?
Yeah, yeah, that was for other reasons, but yeah, I do think Toumani deserves to be in second team all defense conversations, and he's just already so good. It's like, what could he even do to get better? I don't know what Toumani could do to get better because he gets through screens well. He'll bait passes and steal them. You know, his help side is good. Like, he rotates. You know, I think maybe the one thing you can maybe nitpick is maybe he needs to rotate a little faster when he's caught in rotations, but I think he's maybe better at that than anybody else on the team because this team does not rotate quickly on defense. So, love his defense. It's phenomenal stuff.
I'd love to see just a couple things with him. One's not his fault, but he's got long arms. I'd love to see them trap more on the pick and roll when it's him and like someone like DA or Denny or someone else as the other defender there.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that a little more, and just fighting over screens in general. I mean, I know it's mostly our team concept to switch a lot of those, but man, if he could become just a little better at getting through screens too, that would help him out a lot, and he'd be pretty much a nightmare on defense if he could do that. I don't even know
if it's physically possible for him to get much better getting through screens. You know, it's tough at that size. He already does such a good job.
True.
So, Who else impressed you defensively tonight? We're starting with the defense. You hold the Bucks to 102 on the road. It's obviously a good defensive outing. So who else really stood out to you on that side of the ball? Then we'll get into the offense. And we'll also take your calls. If you want to call into the show, join the Discord, link in the description box below. And then once you're in the Discord, click on the call-in thing on the left side. We'll take calls at a couple different points throughout this live stream if we have the callers that want to call in. But you got to join the Discord and click on that call-in to do so. But who else stood out to you defensively, Eric?
Please join tonight because we want to talk with you, and that's the whole point of tonight. So hopefully we get some people calling in. I thought Denny was really solid on defense once again. I mentioned Sharpe. I thought, Sharpe didn't do anything that like stood out, but I think that's a good thing. Like he didn't like mess up much either on defense. So I thought he had a really good night defensively. I thought Klingen's minutes were good on the defensive end. We could talk about offense with him later, but defensively, I thought he had some nice plays in there. Thought Chris played okay defensively. He was guarding Dame for some reason a lot of the minutes he was playing, and I guess we had to play him tonight. But
did we?
but yeah, I thought he was okay on the defensive end in this one as well. So and then we already talked about Scoot having a good defensive game overall. That was pretty much everyone, right?
Yeah.
That played good defensively.
Yeah, and I think it's, you can have good defensive games in different areas, right? Like, I think the biggest thing was you're not sending this team to the line. We know Dame can get to the line a ton. Giannis can, of course, get to the free throw line. He'll have games where he shoots 15 free throws. To be able to hold this team to single-digit free throw attempts is, I think, the most impressive defensive part of this game, right? Of course, it's always cool to lock somebody up one-on-one, but as a young team, young teams are normally foul-prone. We've seen this team be a bit foul-prone. So to see them just not foul, just play sound fundamental defense, play effective defense. It's not like they weren't fouling because they were just letting them drive to the rim for open layups or giving up a ton of open threes, other than AJ Green. That's the most impressive part, and that was pretty much an entire collective effort, not fouling. I mean, the Blazers only have 9 fouls in this game. Avdija had 3, Toumani had 2, but Avdija one of them was an offensive foul, so just super sound fundamental defense. I think this was maybe the cleanest defensive game that they played. I do think the Bucks kind of made it a little bit easier on them. They need to run more two-man action between Giannis and Dame. Dame needs to be more aggressive. Giannis missed some easy layups, but just really, when you're big, you can play better defense without fouling. When you're smaller and you're dealing with a size mismatch, you got to try and make up for it by being physical, and that's when you end up crossing the line more as a team and fouling more. So it's part of the design of this team is you have some bigger guys, you have some strong guys, big guys that can move with Denny and Toumani. So you have the ability to guard a guy like Giannis without sending him to the free throw line a ton, and still has 31 points, but on 27 shots, you'll take that from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to your point about their offense not being great. Okay, so the first play so it gets knocked out of bounds the first time, Dame drives, and who's he kicking out to in the corner? Bobby Portis.
Yeah.
But it gets tipped out of bounds. And then, so they run basically the same thing, only Portis is on the other side. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you having Bobby Portis be the corner 3-point shooter on a Dame outlet with the last play of the game? Like, I don't understand at all.
This is a reason why I don't want the Blazers to go with a retread when they replace Chauncey Billups, because I think a lot of these coaches that have coached for a long time, they don't have a need to be innovative. The game has changed since Doc Rivers won a championship 17 years ago. Right, it's 2025. That was 2008. It's been a long time, right? But he's had all these head coaching jobs. He doesn't have to change his ways. He doesn't have to be innovative. He gets fired. He gets rehired. He's a coach based off his name and what he did in a different league. So the Bucks just are not creative enough, in my opinion, with some of the stuff they run. The Blazers are the same way, and they got a newer head coach, right? It wasn't a retread in Chauncey Billups, but you can have some new head coaches, especially when they're former players, that just aren't creative enough as well. And that's just what the Bucks are lacking, and that's a perfect example of just 1-4 flat. You're kicking out to Bobby Portis twice in a row. You're not running anything. I understand 1-4 flat if it's a tie game and you want to make sure you get the last shot because that's the easiest way to ensure that you take the final shot. But in that situation, man, you got Giannis, you got Dame. I mean, why are you running a 1-4 flat there? And then Dame has to kick out to Bobby Portis. Why is he cutting baseline there? And
just shoot it, Dame, too.
Yeah, but, people will always say, oh, if we were, get rid of Chauncey, I want a Mike D'Antoni. Listen, Mike D'Antoni's more creative than Doc Rivers offensively, but everybody always wants the names that they know as coach, but more often than not, they're retreads that are on their fourth or fifth job for a reason. Right? It's not like Eric Spoelstra, who's been with the Heat for a super long time and is one of the best coaches in the league. So that's where I am not intrigued by retread head coaches. When the Blazers replace Chauncey Billups, you want somebody that's more creative, especially in this league that has a ton of offensive talent in it. Big guys that can shoot, dribble, pass, right? So that was a failure, man. That was some disgusting basketball, and I am not impressed with the offense under Doc Rivers.
Yeah, and the same thing happened for all the people who think Stotts deserved a lifetime pass. He had gotten very stale on offense, especially, and of course we know he couldn't coach defense to save his life. So, yeah, that was the problem. It just became Dame pick and roll was his only offense, and there was no real wrinkles and stuff, and I'm really scared of that with the retread coach, like you said. So hopefully that's not the case moving forward. And still questionable why the Bucks not only hired Doc to finish off last season, but then gave him like a long-term contract and stuff. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll take it, right? Because we were victors tonight.
Yeah, and I'm not rooting for this Blazer team to lose yet, but it's starting to get.
It would have been fine.
It's starting to get to the time of year where it's like I wanted Dame to tie up the game and go into overtime. It's like in close games, I'm rooting for a Blazers buzzer beater or overtime and maybe a loss, right? Like exciting games are fun. I wanted Dame to tie it up there because I kind of wanted Ant to have the chance to go Dame time on Dame. You know what I mean? I love that sort of stuff in games. So Dame throwing it out of bounds, super anticlimactic. Good win. But I mean, the Blazers are 12-22, right? You're looking for player development. That's what I'm happy about from this game is, Sharpe wasn't as big of a game for him as some of his previous games, but it also wasn't so bad that we can sit here and say, see, he's being inconsistent again. 16 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 7 for 15 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3. He still has to shoot the 3 ball better. He was 1 for 8, 1 for 5, and 2 for 7 from 3 in his last 3 games, Eric. He is just, I feel like people treat him like he's a better 3-point shooter than he is because his shot is aesthetically pleasing. But man, I mean, he shot 30% from 3 in January, and this is when he had some big games. And so far to start January, he's 3 for 12, so he's 25%. So 30% in December. I don't know if I said January. 30% in December, 25% so far in his 2 games in January. He has to shoot the 3 ball better. I don't know what it takes, but it's just kind of discouraging because he had a couple big shooting nights, and then now it seems like that's the part that's inconsistent. The dribble drive game, which had some inconsistencies at the start of the year where he was struggling to turn the corner, struggling to get downhill, wasn't able to get a step. That part has improved, and that part is actually becoming more consistent. That's the part that I'm pleased with from Sharpe. The 3-point shooting still remains very streaky on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and that's going to happen, I guess, with the young team. But with Sharpe in particular, I think he made his first three, right? And then he took a couple of really bad ones, or tough ones, I should say.
You you,
But
you want to know what I? So people will say, I have to go into context here, and I want to know if you agree with this, and I want to know if chat agrees with this. There was a clip that was posted on Reddit from one of our streams a couple weeks ago where I brought up the fact that Scoot Henderson was shooting a higher 3-point percentage than Shaedon Sharpe, right? Because Shaedon Sharpe was like 27% at the time, Scoot was 28%, right? And it was posted out of context on Rip City Reddit, basically like, this dude thinks Scoot's a better 3-point shooter than Sharpe, right? And A, I wasn't necessarily saying that. B, the argument to that, Eric, the argument to that is Sharpe takes tougher threes. Okay? If he's shooting 30%, 29%, whatever he's at right now, basically 30% for the season, maybe he should take easier threes. Maybe he shouldn't take as many tough threes if he's shooting this poorly on him. Maybe that's not a good thing that should be used in Sharpe's defense where, oh, he would be a better shooter if he just didn't take so many tough threes. Like, okay, those are probably bad shots then if he's shooting this poorly on them. So maybe he should cut back a little bit, but I think the counter to that is, oh, well, his upside is he can shoot 35% on these types of shots. So you want him taking those types of shots so he can improve upon them to ultimately become the tough shot maker. But it's like, if he's shooting this poorly, man, off some of these tough shots, maybe he should dial it back a little bit.
yeah, I almost busted out a breakdown for this exact purpose.
Would have been the first one of the season.
Yeah, I probably should have. But there was, in the second half of this game, it was kind of a fast break. Sharpe went to the corner. There was no one in the paint, no one between him and the basket. He could have cut and had probably a highlight dunk. There was no one within like 10 feet of the baseline, and he just stood in the corner, got the three, got the ball in the corner, and shot a three and missed it. And I was just like, dude, cut on that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to always shoot the three, especially when you're not great at shooting threes. So, um, yeah, I think for me, I kind of want to see him use that threat of cutting and being such a lob target to get people to sag off him so he can get maybe some easier threes. Because Arrow, if he's here, will bring up the fact that most of Sharpe's threes in context are within when a defender's within a certain amount of feet of him, and Scoots are mostly wide open, and so that's one of the arguments against Scoot being a better shooter is just that he doesn't have the contest on his that other players do. But I would like to see him, and this goes back to coaching or running plays for him too. I feel like, especially the whole second half of this game, not that Sharpe got a ton of threes in the second half, but like I felt like our offense was just back to being ISO heavy, and then Ant has to take a ton of shots, and no one's really doing much. We're not pushing the ball a lot. When we do push the ball, we get a good shot. There's one where Ant drives down, kicks out to Denny, who lobs it into Ayton for one of his only baskets of the second half. And I felt like we were getting good baskets when we did that. The Sharpe lob from Anfernee in the first half was nice. And then, but we had, what, 6 fast break points, you said? Something like that. So we're not getting good shots that way. So we need to run some sort of offense, or Sharpe needs to do something to get a little bit better 3-point shots. But he's got to hit them too. He's just got to make more. Simply put, he's got to be a better shooter than he is if he wants to take that next jump.
Yeah. I mean, we've been all in on the offense and how bad it is all season long. I mean, there's nothing even more to extrapolate there. It's just not set up well to get these guys easy shots. A couple different things there. You know, you brought up Arrow and the argument he always brings up about how open Sharpe's threes are and like the context behind that. I don't even like looking at that context to determine how good of a three-point shooter is unless they're at least shooting an average three-point percentage or better, right? Because it's like with Damian Lillard, prime Damian Lillard, right? He shot 37% from three, but he was super lethal because he shot a good enough percentage from like 30 feet where defenses had to guard him at 30 feet. The thing is when you're 30%, 29%, okay, so you're shooting, you're missing a lot of threes because of defense, right? You know what I mean? It's like, all right, dial back the shots then and see what you shoot, because some people will say, and I mean dial back the three-point shots. I want him to be aggressive going to the rim. And some people will say, no, you want him shooting all these threes. You want him to be aggressive. I think trying to get downhill and get to the rim is more aggressive than just settling for a three-point shot. Especially when you're the athlete that he is. In the play that you talked about where he could cut, maybe get a dunk, I think that's the more aggressive play. It takes more effort, right? It's the more efficient play if he has an opportunity to cut and get an easy dunk. That's more aggressive than just sitting there in the corner and then shooting a wide open three, right? I want him to shoot good three-point attempts. You know, it's kind of the same three-point attempts that I have talked about for Scoot recently, right? If you're running a pick and roll and they go under, shoot it, okay? If you catch the ball on the three-point line and they're closing out soft, shoot it. Absolutely, right? But if you're catching the ball at the three-point line and they're closing out hard on you and you're Shaedon Sharpe, attack them, get downhill, and dunk on someone, right? If you have an opportunity to cut baseline and you're standing in the corner and your defender's not paying any attention to you, cut baseline, catch a lob, and dunk on someone, right? Now, if your defender's sagging in the paint and you don't have the opportunity to cut, then sit in the corner and shoot the three. You know what I mean? I just want him to maybe dial it back just a little bit in terms of some of the really tough attempts that he misses a lot of. He had a late shot clock one. Those, you got to shoot, right? Like, if he has a late shot clock step back fadeaway contested three with 2 on the clock, I will never criticize those because you don't really have an opportunity for anything else. So, okay, fine. But there's just a couple threes here or there where it's like, man, that's why you're shooting 30% from three. That's why your three-point shooting is, you have these 2 for 7, 1 for 8 nights. The dribble drive stuff is looking better and better. Keep doing that. Keep trying to get downhill when a defender's guarding you at the three-point line. It's not like defenders are disrespecting him, which is a good thing, right? Defenders are still respecting him behind the three-point arc. Those types of defenders are easier to drive by, are easier to get downhill on. So they're still respecting your three-point shot. Get by them. Drive. When you've decided to, it's had some really good results lately. So I would love to see him be aggressive with that specific mindset.
Yeah, exactly. And man, that one where he hung in the air and made that lay-in over Brook.
Yeah, that little fadeaway, like 5-footer.
That was so nice. Yeah, more of that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, because he tonight, let's see, he's 7 for 15 and 2 for 7 from 3. He's 5 for 8 inside the arc. That's 62.5%, right? Last game, he was 6 for 61 for 5 from behind the arc. That's 5 for 11. The game before that, he was 5 for 14, 1 for 8 from behind the arc. That's 4 for 6. So that stuff's been working. It's just tough because he had that really good stretch where he had 4 out of 5 games where he had at least 23 points. And I said it's going to be really fascinating to watch the next 3 games to see if he maintains that consistency. It hasn't been the worst, but the following 3 games, Eric, 5 for 14, 6 for 16, 7 for 15. Right? That is that's 18 for 45 in 3 games. That's 40% from the field. And he had 12, 19, and 16 points in those games. So there is a drop-off there. And it's the typical drop-off we see. Maybe it's not quite as bad as how it is in the past, but in case you're new to this conversation, right, we've noticed that Shaedon Sharpe will have 4 or 5 really good games where he plays a lot of minutes. He had a stretch like this last year. It coincided with the Philadelphia game where he hit that crazy fast break layup where he got fouled by, I believe it was Embiid, right? That stretch of play. After that stretch of play, he kind of disappeared. His efficiency fell off a cliff, and he had a really bad 5-game stretch. And after this 5-game stretch, he's never had like a really good 8-game stretch where he's maintained that level of play for more than, 5-6 games. So I was really looking forward to these past 3 games because before that, he had that 4 out of 5 game stretch where he had at least 23 points. And he was making some 3-point shots. You know, he had a 5 for 10 shooting night from 3, a 2 for 4 shooting night from 3, a 3 for 6 shooting night from 3 in that span. The last 3 games, 1 for 8, 1 for 5, 2 for 7 from 3, 12 points, 19 points, 16 points. He's shooting 40% from the field. So it's just a bit disappointing because it kind of feels like what we've seen. It doesn't feel quite as bad as what we've seen, so hopefully that's improvement, I guess. But what are your thoughts on that, Eric?
Well, we played 32 minutes tonight, so that's good, right?
Yeah.
That's better than playing 41 like Anfernee or 43 like Denny played in this game.
Crazy. At least Denny's playing
running players
minutes,
into the
man.
crowd, man.
At least
crazy.
Denny's playing minutes. But yeah, does this feel like similar to previous stretches where he's like dominates for 4 or 5 games and then takes a noticeable step back?
I don't know if it's noticeable because I feel like there's been times, especially these last 2 games, where he's been aggressive. And in the past, those moments weren't there in some of those games that you were talking about where it kind of falls off after he has a good game. So I do think it is incrementally getting better, at least to where it's not like a complete no-show or like disappearance like he's had. But yeah, it is. I don't know. And part of it is, Anfernee goes off in the second half. Just wasn't a lot of shot opportunities, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I would like to see them run some plays for him and see if that helps, whether this is because of what you're saying or not. I still feel like they don't do enough to try and get him going in these games. So it's probably a little bit of both him having issues maintaining that and the team not giving him any help maintaining it either. So I see both sides of it, but I don't think it was like horrible tonight outside of missing. I mean, he missed 2 free throws too, which you don't like to see, but outside of, not shooting the 3 ball well tonight, I don't think it was like terrible, like, oh man, this is the bad Sharpe again.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get to our player of the game, and we'll also get to your calls. If anybody wants to call in, join the Discord. Okay.
Somebody, please.
We do have. Let's see. Do we have anyone in here? No, we have no one in here. So if you do want to call in, go into the Discord. I moved it up to the very top left. All right, we'll take Dallas's call. Dallas in here. We'll take Dallas's call in about 10 minutes or so, Dallas. So just staying tight there. Look forward to talking to you. But I do want to give a shout out to BetUS. BetUS is your number one stop for any of your sportsbook needs. They're offering you a phenomenal promotion I talk about all the time. But if you want to get in on the action with any sport, they have any sport. They have so many different overseas basketball leagues if you're into that sort of thing. College basketball, NBA. They always have betting lines on where guys might get traded. And the trade deadline is only a month and 2 days away from today. So you can get in on any of that action with a great promotion. Promo code YouTube150 will give you 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonuses on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. So you can take advantage of that. NFL playoffs are right around the corner, so you can get in on that action as well. A lot of times I just like to go to BetUS and just see what random lines they have because they'll have some random stuff for sports. You can find their sports on the left side when you go to their sports book, and you can find all sorts of different stuff, and it's just fascinating to look at. So check them out. BetUS, where the game begins. And our player of the game today, as voted on in the chat poll, is Anfernee Simons. Anfernee Simons, 28 points, 8 assists, 3 rebounds, 4 turnovers, 9 for 20 from the field, 5 for 12 from 3, made all 5 of his free throw attempts, and had a clutch and one go-ahead layup to put the Blazers up 1 with 23.1 seconds remaining. A really nice left-hand finish, absorbed the contact, and that preceded the weird Milwaukee Bucks 1-4 flat Brooke Lopez or Bobby Porter's going to cut baseline into traffic, that sort of crap. So it was the dagger. It was the game winner. Anfernee Simons, and then made 2 clutch free throws with 5 seconds remaining as well. Good game from him. I will admit, there was a stretch of play that he had that was driving me crazy where he was being like too aggressive. And but he made shots outside of that stretch. And, it's becoming clear to me, like, man, he's a really good shot maker. We know that. 8 assists in this game. Still had some moments that drove me crazy in terms of tunnel vision where he's just trying to put his head down and do too much, driving into 2 defenders and turning it over in transition sort of stuff. But I do like that, he can make shots, he can make jumpers. He's the best jump shooter on this team, and it seems like he's finally found his shot, and he's having a good stretch here. 4 games in a row with at least 20 points, 28 in this one. He's starting to look like last year's Anfernee Simons. And that guy is just a difficult shot maker. He hits some very difficult mid-range pull-ups in this game. He hits some difficult off-the-dribble threes in this game. This is 4 games in a row that he shot 44% or better from the field. This is 4 games in a row he shot 40% or better from 3. The turnovers have been a little bit high. 4 turnovers the past couple of games, but it's fine when he has 8 assists. What were your thoughts on him tonight?
Yeah, I too thought he got a little too shot happy there for a while. But once again, I was wondering, like, what are we even running? Like, what? Like, does he have to do this because we're not running any kind of set plays or anything?
I think it's more so for me putting his head down a little too much when he does try and get aggressive. It's like a lot of times I feel like he has to create something because of this offense, but sometimes I do feel like he puts his head down a little bit too much in certain situations, especially like transition and early offense. Those are times where you don't necessarily have to force something, and there was a couple moments where he seemed to kind of get focused on his own scoring instead of the floor around him. So that's kind of where my critiques come in. I just wanted to clarify that before you go on.
Yeah, I mean, he did have the lob in transition to Sharpe for the dunk. He had the hockey assist when he kicked out to to Denny, who then passed to Ayton, like I mentioned. So he was passing a little bit on fast breaks too. I don't think it's always head down or whatever. But
no, I mean, if there's an obvious 2-on-1 and Sharpe's on his wing, like, he'll make that pass. I think when it's not so simple, when it's not so easy, there's times where, he had that turnover where he just drove into 2 defenders for no reason and had nowhere to go. And it was with 21 on the shot clock, right? He had that super aggressive 3 almost banked in transition where he just came up, and I guess it was a heat check, but was a shot that was insanely difficult. So I think that's always kind of been the trick for him is how is he a high-level scorer while making the right play a little bit more and not getting too tunnel vision, too shot happy. And, I think this was the perfect game to show what Anfernee Simons is, which is a really gifted shot maker, can make some basic solid passes and have an 8-assist game like that. And at times gets a little too over-aggressive with his own shot. But, I mean, he's the player of the game. He had a really good game today because he made shots. He's 5 for 12 from 3. He made some really tough off-the-dribble jumpers, and that's just the type of shot maker he is.
Yeah, he had I was looking through his turnovers. He got the one where he got stripped by A.J. Green. That's not good. He lost the ball on the one where he got kneed in the nuts. He tried to dump it to, I don't know if that was Ayton but there was a play where he tried to throw it between 2 players, and it looked like a kickball, but and then he had the one towards the end where he fumbled the ball that just lost the ball in a pass. That wasn't a good play. It almost cost us the game there because they had a fast break out of it. So this is Anfernee's like right on the verge, like that. He's on that line of he's not good enough to do that, but if he wants to take the next step, he also, as like a scorer, I'm just talking about purely as a scorer, like all the good scorers take tough shots like that too, and have times where they just put their head down and try to get buckets. So, like if that's, it's hard for me because like you watch interviews where you see Chauncey talking about this with Sharpe and with Jeremy last year, where he's like telling them to just ISO and take tough shots, and we need to do that and stuff like that. So, it's I think Anfernee's stuck in that he's stuck in that range where he can get insane and be, when he does, I mean, he's just as good of a scorer as pretty much anyone in this league. And then there's times where he can completely shoot you out of a game, which other stars do too. But he hasn't been good this year, like shooting splits wise. Efficiency wise, he's been good in previous years. But yeah, until that efficiency matches that shot taking, I agree that it probably should be dialed back a little bit. But at the same time, like if you're trying to become that scorer or get out of a funk that you're in, if you're feeling confident, I also kind of like that he's getting his confidence back or his aggression back to be comfortable taking some of those shots, because it looked like he had completely lost any confidence in what he had been doing in previous seasons, earlier in the season. So, yeah, it's tough for me because I look at this team and I just watch them run no sets for like 20 straight plays.
Yeah.
And just like, okay, well, someone's got to shoot, I guess. So yeah, I don't know, man. That's why we've been begging for years to have some sort of structure where players like Anfernee don't have to do this as much, and then it would stand out when they do, and then you could be like, well, this is a bad shot because we get better shots within the context of our offense, but we don't get that great of shots when we just ISO and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's a tough situation for me.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think the easiest way for me to summarize just how I feel about his playmaking is, to me, he's a score first shooting guard that can pass and run pick and roll. Like he's not a point guard to me. And going into the year, that's not really how I felt. I was like, maybe he can be a point guard. I still am wondering if he can take a jump. And he had, I think, 3 nice assists out of the pick and roll. Like he can make some solid pick and roll reads. He's just not somebody that's going to make super advanced reads. Like he'll make the kick out passes, right? He had a kick out to Toumani for a 3. If he drives baseline and somebody's in the opposite corner, he can make that pass. I think he doesn't have a problem with like accurately passing to someone most of the time. He'll have a moment here or there, like that pass behind Robert Williams against that zone a couple games ago. But I think like accuracy is fine. The process of like making the pass is fine. It's just the process of seeing the pass. I just think there's times where he doesn't see things that I would hope that like a lead creator would see. And I know we're probably off that conversation by this point with some of his struggles this year, but the conversation going into this season was like, can Ant take a jump and be a legitimate lead creator? And unless you're like insanely gifted as a scorer, you got to be able to make some of those advanced reads. And he can make some really good passes out of normal situations or like reads that are a little bit more obvious. Like that pass to Sharpe was a pinpoint lob from half court. That was a really good pass. But, he's going in transition and Sharpe's behind the defense and like right in front of him, like in his field of vision. So he sees it, he throws a dime. I think that the thing is sometimes the vision aspect of being a playmaker is a little bit lacking. And I think that's completely fine. It's just within the context of, could he be a lead guard? The conversations that we were having before the season. I just think that's the main thing holding him back.
Yeah, that cross-court pass he had to Sharpe wasn't just like a normal, easy pass to make, though. The one towards the end of the game for 3 when he recognized that Middleton was sagging because DA had a mismatch down low, and he threw it.
It was a skip pass to a guy without anyone within 20 feet of him. I mean, it was a good pass.
But you had the timing of it. You had to wait for Middleton to sag off. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it proves anything. I'm just saying like he does make some good passes.
Oh yeah, no, I said he makes some good passes, man. He can make reads. I'm not sitting here saying he can't make any reads. I think some of the more advanced ones where he struggles. And I'd have to, I wish I could illustrate it or find a couple examples. Yeah, no, and it's not like you can't make a read on like, oh, Middleton sags middle off the opposite corner and he skips it, right? They were trying to enter the ball to DA that whole possession, right? And he looks at DA, makes a little pump fake. Middleton, by the point Ant catches the ball, Middleton was already in the middle of the paint, right? So he pump fakes to DA and skips it. That's a good read. Don't get me wrong. That is a good read. I think just there's like another level to some of the better like lead guard creators that he has yet to really show me. And that's completely fine. He can be a 22 point per game guy as a starter and give 5 assists. It's not an insult to say somebody's a shooting guard that can pass and run some pick and roll, but isn't a pure point. Everybody takes that as if you're calling a quarterback a game manager, right? But like CJ was also one of those guys, and CJ was special enough to put the team on his back in a Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals on the road and get a team to a Western Conference Finals, right? So, I think there's a lot of value in that type of player, and I think Ant's value should be probably higher on the trade market than it is. I just think, if you take into context the conversations about like being a lead guard, that's what's been lacking to me, and that's kind of been what I've been trying to figure out from him this year is can he make improvements with some of the tougher reads, and he'll have good moments here or there. It's just that's the consistency where it's lacking, but he can pass. He can pass. Yeah. It's not that's not what I'm not saying he can't pass.
Yeah, I mean I agree. He's not like an elite passer or anything. That's not. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I'm reading your comment in chat.
Yeah, no, okay. So the same guy, Boysenberry, and Slim did this earlier too. So I mentioned the 3 times where Scoot lost AJ Green, he got wide open 3.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you nitpick Scoot so much.
That's what I said.
Boysenberry brings up this one play with Anfernee, and that's like it's the exact same thing I'm doing. Like you guys, I'm just trying to balance it out. It's like they're both flawed and both have things we need to talk about, positive and negative. It's not a thing where I'm picking on one or the other. They both have good and bad qualities. So yeah. Anyway, and you're sensitive as F when it comes to Scoot criticism. Some of you guys just cannot handle it. Like I don't understand. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Who's sensitive as F?
People in chat.
Yeah, people in chat.
I don't know how many times have I said Ant was awful this year? Like after games,
people go overboard with hate on both these guys. Okay, like because there will be people in that come in here, and these are the type of people that I've argued with a ton in the past. People will come in here and say Ant never passes. It's like, okay, how did he finish with 8 assists then? How does somebody not pass and have 8 assists? Please explain to me how that's even physically possible, right? Oh, Scoot's awful. He belongs overseas in the G League, like he'll never become anything. And it's like, how can you say that when he's 20 years old, right? Like, let's just be reasonable, right? To me, Scoot has improved offensively. He's not perfect offensively. He still makes mistakes, but it's good to see the improvement. It's good to see him be competitive on the ball, because I feel like the Blazers have always had these young guards that struggle defending the ball and have never improved. You know what I mean? Like, just have not improved the way that you'd want him to improve. Dame, CJ, even Ant, Scoot, I think, is showing more improvement than any of those guys ever did early on in their careers, and that to me is a positive. That to me is encouraging. So that's what I like from Scoot. He's still going to make mistakes. He's still 20 years old, but that's what's good to see for me. And with Ant, it's. I think I've fully figured out, in my opinion, what he is at the NBA level. He took a jump the past couple of years. And there was the question of, is he going to take another jump into being like a star, right? Some people had that question. I just think what I explained is the thing that's holding him back from being a, top 25, top 30 player in the league compared to wherever he is right now, which people will take as criticism, but you're talking about what differentiates the best in the world from guys that are just a hair below being one of those elite guys. It's really hard to get there. That's what I always say in terms of, not being too over optimistic with Scoot, Sharpe, Ant, like anybody on this team. It's really hard to become a top 30 player in the world. So that's just the thing with Ant. He'll have games where he can have 10 assists because he can make some passes, make some pinpoint passes that are maybe tough for some guys. It's just, when you're a star, like these dudes just read the game at a whole different level, or they're just so insanely gifted as a scorer that they can become super impactful just off their scoring ability. Ant's a really gifted scorer, but, I don't think he's Damian Lillard as a scorer, for example.
Well, yeah, of course not. I mean,
and that's the difference.
Top 75 players,
yeah,
but
that's the difference.
Okay, I do have a question for you, but first, I have to bring this up. So we're talking about Anfernee. Did you see a article from yesterday on Rip City Project? What the headline was?
Yeah.
Did you happen to see this?
Yeah.
The Blazers' most volatile player is finally like shooting better or something. Would you ever describe Anfernee Simons as volatile? Like, maybe
like
to like
volatile in terms of performance, like in terms of impact, like
I don't know. Like it's like maybe volatile in terms of like so much of this fan base like hates him.
Yeah, he's definitely volatile in that way. But
I would describe volatile like if you just told me like someone wrote an article about a volatile player on the Blazers, I was like, oh, that's about Ayton, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, Ayton is definitely more volatile than Ant. I think where the volatile comment comes from is like when Ant's missing shots, there's games where he like doesn't help you in a single area and will like shoot you out of a game and just be a detriment. And then there's games where he can completely put your team on his back and win you a game, kind of like today. So I think that's the volatile comment.
But I think volatile, though, I agree with Elizabeth Allen. I think like locker room malcontents like he mentions Draymond Green or something like that. Like, those guys are volatile. Maybe Nurk.
Yeah.
But so I think of those guys. I don't think of volatile as like a quiet, nice guy that just fans are disagreeing on his future with the Blazers. Like, I don't know. That just seemed kind of weird. I also wanted to ask you if you had a chance to read a quick article about Anfernee and his emotional battles.
I didn't read the article, but I saw a headline that alluded to some of the what I talked about earlier this season.
Yeah. And I will say, so for all you people who think I never criticize Ant, listen closely. Okay? You can't play the way Anfernee has played this season and then also use losing as an excuse. I hate that because you are part of the reason why we're losing by not playing better, and you have to play better. So clip that if you want, but like he has not played well enough to say the losing's getting to me here, because you are contributing to the losing, my guy. Like, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but like, dude, you cannot keep this up and say like maybe last year or the year before that you can make that claim, and especially when they shut you down at the end of seasons and you want to be able to be turned loose and go for it. But at the beginning of a season, when they're not sitting you or whatever, you can take over games. You can affect whether you win or lose. Like, you should be playing better before you have these kind of breakdowns over not wanting to lose anymore. Like you need to step up more.
Yeah.
So that is my thing with him, is like I feel bad that he's having those issues and stuff, but like at the same time it's like, dude, like you're contributing to this team losing.
Yeah, I'll have a thought on that in a second. Shout out Alex Wolf. I don't want to forget these donations. Shout out Alex Wolf, $2 donation. Says, live from Little Caesars Arena, 9 arenas down. Thank you, Alex. In case you guys don't know, Alex Wolf is doing the 30 stadium thing where he goes to every arena, every NBA arena in the league. So today he was in Detroit. Right? That's Detroit's arena, right?
Yep. Got to watch Anthony Edwards score 50, even though Minnesota lost to
Yeah.
Detroit. But yeah,
Yeah, pretty good game to be at. Cade Cunningham scored 40. That's the Blazers' next opponent. And
nice.
then shout out Oscar, $5 donation, says, I feel like Shea's step back threes are after he had an open shot, which is really frustrating. Also, he passes a lot when he gets to an open spot on the floor, too. Yeah, I think there is times where, like, Sharpe catches the ball, is hoping the defender will close out hard on him so he can drive, and will wait for that to happen. And then the defender will close out short, and then instead of just shooting the three or pump faking, Sharpe will, like, start to drive and then step back. And it's like, man, okay, pump fake the three. You catch the ball and you want to drive and you want him to close out hard. You got to look like you're shooting. You got to pump fake it, right? Act like you're going in for the shot. Hopefully get the guy to jump. I think he could do a little bit better job of that, right? But then if a defender closes out short, just shoot the three then. Why do you need to turn it into a step back?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when you shoot the three.
Yeah.
It should all be playing from there where it's like, okay, he doesn't close out hard. Maybe pump fake then. Maybe pump fake twice and jab step, play from triple threat. Instead, it's like he puts the ball on the floor and steps back, and it's like he's not keeping his options open, and he's not making the defender commit to him, and he's just making the shot that he already has even harder by turning it into a step back. So I agree with that take from Oscar. Thank you for the donation. Do you agree with that take from Oscar?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would like to see him drive more in those situations and not take those shots as much. I mean, sometimes you have to with the shot clock winding down, I guess. But yeah, yeah, the more aggressive he can be, I think the better will be overall.
Yeah, and then the final thing that I'll say on Ant in regards to what you said in terms of like him being frustrated about the losing situation, it's like, okay, if you want to be frustrated at your own performance, go for it. I hope that you're frustrated
Yeah,
with that, sure. Right? But yeah, when you're performing bad, you shouldn't be frustrated at the team for losing when you have a big hand in that. So I absolutely agree with what you said there.
I have a question I have to ask you, Tori.
All right, and then we'll get to calls.
All right. Okay, so we talked a lot about Scoot's playmaking not being utilized enough with the lack of shooting, the lack of other people who can shoot off of it, right? Or that know when to cut or whatever. Why do we not give Anfernee some of that same leeway as in terms of his passing? Is it just
as we do with Scoot?
Well, I know it's like obviously Scoot is a better passer, but what I'm saying is like we don't say, well, Anfernee would be averaging more than 5 assists if he had better shooting around him, right? Like, I don't know.
I mean,
should we give him a little bit of that same leeway?
Maybe, but I think Scoot passes more, so he'd have even more assists.
Yeah, I'm saying both of them.
So I think but the thing is it plays to somebody who passes more. If you never pass, it doesn't matter how good or bad your teammates are, you're never going to get any assists, right? If you pass all the time, then that matters the most, right? So obviously it's all going to be within that gray area because nobody never passes. But that's the thing with Scoot is I think part of it is he needs a little bit more spacing to effectively drive than Ant does because he just doesn't have the feel that Ant does, that Ant's developed throughout his career. I think Scoot will get there, but it's still very early on. I think with better spacing, he would have an easier time maybe getting to the rim, whereas I think Ant is a little bit better with lesser spacing. And I think part of that is because Scoot, needs to become a better three-point shooter so that he can cleanly beat his defender off the dribble. I think with the gap that some defenders will give him that they would never give Anfernee Simons, it's harder for Scoot to fully beat that defender off the dribble. So then when there's traffic, then it becomes tough. Whereas Ant can cleanly beat that guy and then make his next decision before he gets into the traffic, so to say. So I think that's one of the reasons why it matters more for Scoot. I think the other reason is Scoot, I think, looks to set up guys a little bit more in positions where they're strong. So if you had a little bit more talent around him, I would like to see the way Scoot would work with that. Whereas Ant's more so like, okay, we'll run a pick and roll, I'll make a pass, or I'll drive, and if I collapse the defense, then I'll just kick out. That's why I think there's a little bit of a difference there. And also it's of course giving Scoot a little bit more leeway because he's 20.
Right. Well, my question is, okay, so you just mentioned Anfernee is better at scoring in those situations, right? Like, what if it's just as simple as Anfernee knows it's a better option for him to shoot? Maybe not at times this year, but like overall, it is years since Dame's, or since he's been a starter. Maybe it's as simple as he doesn't trust his teammates to make a shot as much as he trusts himself, whereas Scoot isn't there scoring wise, so he has to pass more.
I think it needs to trust his teammates a little bit more then.
Yeah, yeah, that's agreed.
Like in terms of some of the really tough shots he shoots, he should not trust some of the really tough shots that he shoots over an open three for a teammate, like Toumani or whoever. Right? Yeah. Like, who's Ant playing next to? Playing next to Sharpe, Grant, or Avdia in Toumani in the starting lineup. It's not like he doesn't have guys that can knock down shots, whereas Scoot has at times had to run lineups with Klingon and Robert Williams in them, which is super clunky, right? And like in this game, is playing with Chris Murray more because that's the bench unit. So I know they stagger guys, so it's not just like purely cut into starters and bench lineups, especially when you're running only an 8-man rotation, which the Blazers only played 8 guys tonight. So, it's not that simple, but those are just some of the reasons why, to answer your question.
Man, Desmond Ballard has the worst taste.
What'd he say? We'll get to calls after you tell me what he said.
Now, Giannis is a bad team player. Giannis is the problem with the Bucks.
Yeah, this dude has only won a championship in Milwaukee. What do you mean he's a bad team player, bro? He's won a championship. he's been a Finals MVP, man. That dude is that team. Like, what are we talking about? He's like a point center. He averages 6 assists a game. This year, he is averaging 6 assists a game. Last year, he averaged 6.5 assists per game. As like a point center athletic freak that can just dominate people in the paint. That's a really bad take. It's a really bad take. Anyway, we'll get to calls.
Yeah, let's talk to the people.
First off is Dallas. I think the order of the audience is the order in which they join. So we'll try and get to all 4 people. Just depends. But Dallas, you've been invited to speak. Last time we talked to Dallas on a post-game show, he had a really good question about how to get into scouting draft prospects. And this was about a month ago, maybe a little bit more. Dallas, what's going on, man? And
what's up, Dallas?
How's it going?
It's going good. And I'm curious to know, was my advice good? Was our advice good in terms of how to get into scouting draft prospects? Have you been up to that this year?
So I'm going to be honest, Tori. That was a lot harder than you made it out to be. I've caught some games. Making a list is tough, though, man. I'm sitting here, and the hardest part about it is, 1, catching the games, but 2, you gotta ignore the consensus. Because I'm watching this game, and I'm like, how is this dude consensus top 10? Like, I don't know. This isn't really a hot take, but I'm really low on VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah.
Like, I watch his games, and I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
He's not a top 10 prospect. He's not this year.
Yeah.
At least to me. I don't know.
That's
not an expert.
Pretty much where I'm at. See, that's the thing, though. I think you just got to trust yourself, right? Just because somebody's consensus this or consensus that doesn't mean that they should be that. And that's the fun part, is once you start to get used to it. Like, I share those same sentiments about VJ Edgecombe. I think I have him 11th or 12th, and that's just because he's like really good defensively. But I could see him being outside of my lottery, right? Doesn't matter that he's consensus top 10, because here's the thing that I've noticed is there's a lot of guys that I'm like, why is consensus like this on them? Consensus is either too high or too low. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, it's like, oh, consensus is caught up to what I think or what me and Eric think, right? Dirk Lively was one of those guys that was a projected late first for the longest time. We were like, nah, this dude's a lottery guy. And then he ended up going to the lottery. So sometimes to me, it's more fun when you disagree with the consensus. But Yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm hot take seeking too.
Yeah, that's the tough part is not hot take seeking. That's always tough. Eric, what were you gonna say?
One thing you have to keep in mind, though, Dallas, is a lot of these things, especially with freshmen, are based on things other than just how they played in, 20 games or whatever it is so far in college. Um, so you've got to factor in, VJ had a good run with the Bahamas, playing some international games this summer, uh, was on the high school AAU circuit, had a lot of um, hype there. Just hasn't played as well as he can. Also, he's been very, very good defensively, and that doesn't jump out as much when you're like scouting players. The defensive side of it, it's a lot easier to notice how good someone is offensively unless they're like a rim protecting center. So it is hard to scout defense sometimes, especially a lot of teams play zone and stuff in college and things like that. But um, I will say, like, you have to kind of keep in mind that there is a reason why some of these players are rated high, especially earlier in the season. But a lot of this changes over the course of the season. So you could be completely right. And it's really cool. That's one of the most fun things is when you are right about a prospect either being really bad when everyone else thinks they're really good, or being really good when you thought, or when people didn't even have a first round grade on them or something like that. So yeah, just I mean, have your own opinions. I don't think you have to conform to consensus at all.
Yeah, and I will say this too, to kind of counter a little bit of what Eric said, and this is the fun debates that we get into, right? Is one of the biggest keys with scouting prospects is trying to figure out if their game translates to the NBA level or to a higher level. So while VJ Edgecombe's stock is based on some things he did, like, with the Bahamas team, and which is a higher level than high school, but it's with the Bahamas team and what he did on the AAU circuit in high school. It's like, if his game is not translating well to college, then how's it going to translate to the NBA? And that's where I get hung up on him, despite some of the things he's done in the past. But that's the art of scouting. That's what's fun. Every prospect has a different path. Every prospect has different strengths, weaknesses, different story. And that's what always gets me into it, is trying to figure out which one stories line up to them becoming good in the NBA. So
Yeah. Like I said, I haven't caught enough to really be confident in my opinion. That's also why I don't say it with my full chest. Like,
it's tough. It's
definitely
still
need
early.
to catch up.
It's still early. You got
Yeah,
March
yeah,
Madness.
yeah.
That'll be huge for that, right? Conference tournaments where you'll have like a bunch of games for like a whole week, right? So you still got time. And then a lot of guys I'll do research on after the season and come up with my opinions then. So it's still 5.5 months to the draft, so you got time.
All right, so I came with a question.
Awesome.
Aside from this,
Yeah.
Also, first off, it's cool to meet you, Eric. Nice to meet you. You weren't here last time, so just wanted to get that out. I've been watching forever, so yeah, super cool to talk to you guys.
But yeah, cool to talk to you too.
Too bad Eric's arguing with Desmond in chat, but that's a.
I'm listening.
All right. So the question I brought was, aside from the obvious need for 3-point shooting from both Scoot and Shaedon, what's your guys' ideal realistic leaps in both their skill sets that would give you hope for the future?
I'll let Eric start.
By the end of the season.
For Sharpe, who was it? Scoot and Sharpe?
Scoot and Sharpe, yeah. Chat, feel free to answer this as well. Go ahead, Eric.
By the end of the season, I think it still depends a lot on what the roster looks like in terms of how realistic any kind of leaps or clarity we could get on those guys. For me, I want to see Sharpe be more of a guy that doesn't have games where he disappears. I think that is getting less, like we talked about at the beginning of the show. But I think I just want to see him like continue to build on the aggression that he's had. And I haven't been tweeting much, but I tweeted this out the other day that if Sharpe ever figures out how to use that aggressiveness, like the sky's the limit for him. and it would be awesome to see. I want him to just keep being aggressive. And for Scoot, I like the way he's been playing lately. He's not trying to do too much. He's not taking, 15 shots when he comes in and stuff like that. He's running the offense well. He's making the right passes. So I just want to see him continue to make the right reads and do that. And then, like Tori talked about earlier, he's been improving defensively. So I don't necessarily think I want to see like a huge leap or like something in particular for any of them. I think it's just they're incrementally getting better right now. You can see it on the court, and I just want them to just be more consistent with that the rest of the season and not have the ups and downs that they've had in their first season or two.
Yeah, to put it simply, for me is Sharpe making threes more consistently. I think the dribble drive stuff is real, and then for Scoot, it's showing consistent improvement in his shot making, whether it's from three or finishing at the rim. I think he's shown some improvement in his finishing. He's shooting a better percentage, and then showing consistent improvement in his poise and decision making. That's what's been really impressive to me lately, because he's been, he throwing some really nice passes, and he had 2 turnovers in today's game that were teammates' faults. Chris Murray dropping a pass that was a really good pass to him, and then Aiden, who was open on a lob, deciding to box out when the lob is thrown. So I think this, Scoot lately has been showing me enough improvement in his finishing, and just the poison decision-making has been really good. The three-point shot's still here to miss. He had a really tough Damian Lillard-esque make today, pull up off a screen where he might have gotten fouled. Like, I don't know where that came from, but, he starts doing stuff like that here or there. Those are some good flashes to see. So that's what I would look for in terms of what skills would give me hope.
Okay.
Great question.
If you want, I mean, I have my opinion. I would say that for both of them, it's pretty similar for me. I want to see them break down defenders one-on-one more consistently.
Yeah.
We see flashes from Shaedon and Scoot. Both of them show flashes of it. It's just when they do it, I also want to see them make the right decision after they get there. I feel like that's a huge step for Shaedon especially. I think Scoot's been better at it lately.
Yeah. No, I agree. Good to talk
also,
to you, man.
Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Eric, is there anything that Scoot and Shane could do, or specifically more Scoot, because you seem to be a little bit more down, but you said you like what you're seeing. By the end of the year, if he keeps trending the way he's been trending lately throughout the season, are you confident that he's our starting point guard?
I don't know if that's going to happen this season or not. Long term, I still hold out hope that could happen, but heading into the off season, I don't see a scenario outside of him just taking some sort of crazy jump like the second half of the season. I don't see a scenario where it's like if we have an opportunity to get like a Dylan Harper or something in the draft, how we could pass on that just because, what if Scoot's that guy? I think it's fine heading into next season if we address other needs and give Scoot the reins to hopefully be that. But I don't know if I'm going to be confident at all that it's 100% going to work out or anything, or I'm for certain he's the guy that could be part of the core for the future. So I think you can be cautiously hopeful of that, but I also wouldn't hesitate to bring in someone that you think could be better than him just because he's showing something. So I don't know if anything he can do this season to warrant not thinking that still could be a need.
Okay, fair enough.
Appreciate the questions, man. You asked really good questions.
Thank you, Dallas.
So I always enjoy when you call in.
Call in every time, man.
Yeah, we look forward to it. So appreciate you.
I try to.
Yeah, good work. Good work. We need you in the locker room asking Chauncey some of the tough questions.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Maybe one day. All right, bro.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. We'll take, let's see. We got a few more people in here. We got Corbin. Let me see who joined first. Also, Eric, we cannot bring up the conversation that's being had in chat because it'll take over chat. Yeah. So we just can't. Like, there's just it's just not good. Not a good thing to.
What I'm curious what your answer to that question is. Real quick.
Scoot being the starter?
If there's anything he could do for you to be 100% confident that he is the point guard moving forward.
I mean, I just think it's shot making. I just think it's shot making because his passing, I think, and I said this even at the end of last year, like I think his passing is really good for his age, right? And he was still too turnover prone last year. He's made strides in terms of taking care of the ball while still being really effective as a playmaker. And in this game, only had 3 assists, but probably could have been more if Chris Murray can catch a pass or DeAndre Ayton kept rolling to the rim and could catch a lob. Like, it should have been 5 assists and 1 turnover. He had a couple teammates sell him. And the thing is I'm bringing that up because I can name the specific situations, right? It's not just a cliche necessarily like we talked about earlier. It's specific situations kind of got screwed in this game. So, but he's been averaging about the same amount of assists per game, and his turnovers are down from 3.4 last year to 2.7 this year. So that improvement, and just like the poise he's playing with right now as a 20-year-old, I think he's playing with a lot of poise lately, the past 5-6 games. And I think there's just going to be a time where the game slows down for him, and maybe that's what we're seeing with his play lately, where the game has slowed down for him. I just think the one thing that you worry about is, can he make enough shots? So if he can show like sustained improvement in terms of shot making, then I'm confident in his ability at the end of the season to be a starting point guard. Now, does that mean we don't draft Dylan Harper if we're sitting there at 2? No. Like, if we can get somebody that we're super confident can be a all-star or superstar point guard, yeah, you take that guy, even if you're confident Scoot can be a starter, because you'd rather have a star than just a starter. So, yeah, I'm getting close to the point where I'm confident that Scoot can at least be a starting caliber point guard, just with some of his play as of late.
Okay. All right, who's next?
All right, next up, let me go to the logs. We have, let's see here. I just want to ask who's been in here the longest, who's been waiting the longest. JD to Dev is up next. And then we'll get to 1 or 2 more, and then we'll take calls at the very, very end as well. JD to Dev, you've been invited to speak. Hopefully you know how to accept those invitations. That's the problem. It's like people for some reason have trouble accepting the invites for some reason. So, but yeah, we'll bring you up here if you accept. Otherwise, we will invite somebody else. JD, we got you.
All right, sorry, man. Trying to figure out how to work this. I've never done it before.
All good, man. Glad to get you in here.
Yeah, good to talk to you guys. Been listening since 2019.
Let's go.
I'm not 100% sure you guys have talked about this already, and all my days blend, so I don't even remember when I read this. But Chauncey gave an interview recently where he talked about whose team it is. Have you guys already talked about this?
I don't believe so.
No.
Okay. So he said, it's nobody's team right now, but Ant wants it, Shaedon wants it, DeAndre wants it, and I couldn't help but read it and be like, this has to be made up BS, right? Like, Shaedon and Ant have no personality for wanting to own a team, be the person who, this is my team. DeAndre Ayton probably has it in him, but that's because he doesn't understand his limitations and that he's not really qualified for it. But, that just led me to think, like, it's crazy to think that we have a team with a bunch of people that we are kind of hoping take the next step, but nobody right now holds that position of this is my team. And I just wondered what you guys had to say about that, what you thought about who could possibly maybe fill that role, who we have with what we have now. I think maybe Scoot might be the only person with that mentality who might actually be productive in the future. But Ant definitely doesn't have it, and Shaedon is so laid back, he doesn't have it. Just curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, so like if you're in terms of being like vocal leader of the team while also being good enough to like establish it as your team on the court as well, right? Like that's the thing is I think Denny has a good attitude and plays really hard, and seems like he's a vocal guy, so he has some of the elements of a guy who could be a leader in terms of being vocal, a leader in the locker room, etc. But he's not like that level of good where you can say it's his team. Like he's not even starting for this team, right? I think he's been the best Blazer, but he's a role player. So the tough thing is you got to find somebody with the right character traits that is also good enough to establish themselves as that. I think Scoot's vocal, but I'm not sure he has, and I don't mean this in a bad way, right? I always defend Scoot with everything. I think right now Scoot doesn't have the maturity yet to lead a team. You know, like you just look at his first answer in his media day thing about what he's worked on this offseason or what he remembers.
Food is real good.
Yeah, food's real good, right? So I think like he has he's like out there, he's outspoken, he's not afraid to be himself, and he has the potential to be good enough to be that guy, but like he's a long way away from it, both from maybe a maturity standpoint as well as his game. But like he's 20, so like I don't say that in a bad way. He's just 20 years old, right? He's going to be a different dude and a different player when he's 26, 27. So, Ant's quiet, Shay's quiet. I don't see them being vocal leader types, so I agree in terms of like it's tough to see who that is on this team. I think, if you get a Cooper Flag, obviously, I think it's very easy to sit there and say, like, yeah, he's going to be that guy, right? If you get a Dylan Harper, I think you can probably look at that type of guy as well, just because they're such great prospects and they're not as quiet as like a Shaedon or an Ant. But I do think it's a fascinating question. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is why this team has been inconsistent and why it hasn't taken a leap in terms of, like maybe seeing that what this outcome could be long term in terms of like, okay, well, how many years is it going to take to get back to playoff contention and things like that. I think that's what makes it hard to evaluate is I don't think that guy is on the roster, and it pretty much goes along with having a star. And I think Denny's probably the closest we have to production.
He has that mindset for sure.
Yeah, production matching his attitude in terms of not being afraid to get into teammates' face or being that leader on the court. So I think as he's played better this season, I think it's gotten better in terms of having that guy. But I still don't think a non-star can 100% be that guy unless you're just like crazy smart and crazy prepared, like a Draymond type, So
Draymond, who I was just thinking of, yeah.
So, I mean, Denny could be that, I guess, but I don't know, because like Draymond, well, you can talk to him and he'll be like, well, you have to guard this guy if he's in like this 5-foot radius on the court and he takes a dribble to his left, he shoots 42% of the time from this spot, and like so you have to be prepared for him to take that jump. Like it's like crazy how much he like knows, and like he'll like tell everyone's tendencies and things like that. There was a series where the Blazers played the Pelicans Rajon Rondo famously like called out all our plays or what we were doing and just stuff like that. Like I don't see that on the team right now. Like I don't think we have a guy that has that high of a level of basketball IQ to get to that point. So it's really hard to like just say like, well, this guy could be that, because it's tough because you have to not only be a really good player and bring it consistently, but you also have to have that knowledge and stuff, and you have to be like a not necessarily a natural leader, but you have to have at least some ability to naturally lead a team. You can't just like force your best player to be a leader, as we're seeing with Anfernee or Jeremy Grant or whoever it is. So you do need someone to just step up and be that guy. I think Denny's the closest we have, but I still think that goes along with this team needs to find their star, like Tori was mentioning. And if we get that through the draft or something else, it's still going to take a couple years, I think, for them to. They're not just going to come right in and be like, "This is my team now," or whatever. I don't know if you necessarily have to have that guy right now either while you're rebuilding, but to take that next step, you obviously have to find that guy, and I don't think he's on the roster.
Yeah,
I think you just need to have the kind of guy who has the attitude of everything matters, every game matters, and the skill set doesn't necessarily have to match up to that. You just got to be in it to win it every single game, and like calling out your teammates when they're messing up, but also pat them on the ass when they're doing well.
I just think it's tough. It's tough for guys if they feel like they're better than a player to have like somebody like that holding them accountable, unless they're a Udonis Haslam vet type of guy who's been around the block a few times, right? So I think Denny kind of has that attitude. I would view that more so as like that's a really good locker room guy, not necessarily the leader. I always view the leader as somebody that can be like a vocal leader as well as lead the team on the floor as well. In that aspect, there was a comment that said like Denny, because I think Denny has the closest thing to the right temperament for that, but I said he's more of the role player type of guy, and I don't mean that as an insult. And there's somebody that said Denny has the potential to average 23 points per game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Like, okay, I think that's a little bit ambitious. We've seen him have some high turnover outputs, a couple of games where his usage is high here
7
recently.
tonight.
He had 7 tonight. He had 10 recently, right? And I love Denny, so this is not to just criticize him just to criticize him, right? But I think we just got to be realistic. It's unlikely Denny will ever reach that point. If he does reach that point, great. Like, okay, then he can be that guy. I just think when you look at like Scoot, you look at anybody on this team, it's like a big what if in terms of like, oh, this guy has to make a bunch of strides. Like Ant would have to make a bunch of strides in terms of being a vocal leader. That's probably never going to happen just because his personality is what his personality is, and it's not even a bad thing. You know what I mean? But like Denny, that's such a big step to go from a really good player that he is now to like, that would be like top 30 player in the world, right? And I've always said with every player, that's a really big step. So that's why I'm not necessarily counting on it to be Denny in terms of him becoming like a 23 point per game, 8 rebound, 5 assist guy. I would love that. I don't know exactly what his ceiling is, but I just think that's ambitious, right? So it's tough, and I think this goes to the point of the question. It's tough to see who that is on this roster just because whoever it would be would have to take some serious strides in order to actually assert themselves as the leader of this team.
Yeah, being so far away from having somebody like that feels not great. Side question that's basically the same thing, but who was our player before Dame who was that? Like, I want to say it was LaMarcus, but LaMarcus didn't really have that temperament.
We didn't have one, like, I guess Roy maybe there for a minute. After that, there wasn't really that guy as a number one. Like, Wesley Matthews was a really good locker room guy, but the team, the year that we drafted Dame, the season before, right before we drafted Dame, was a mess in the locker room because you had like Raymond Felton, Jamal Crawford, Aldridge wasn't that leader, right? Gerald Wallace was a quiet guy, right? He was on that. I forget what team was his last.
Yeah, it was the mutiny in the.
Yeah, they had a mutiny in the locker room.
Well, we traded him. We traded him at the deadline.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We Oh yeah, we traded him for the pick that became Dame. How am I forgetting that? Right? Yeah.
Yep.
Why am I blanking on that? Yeah, because that was the pick from the Nets, right? Because they were trying to impress Darren Williams and get him to re-sign there because they just traded for Darren Williams back when he was really good. They only thought there was 3 good players in that draft, so only top 3 protected that pick. It became 6th. We got Dame. Rest is history. So, yeah, but that locker room was not good because you were missing that guy, so we didn't really have one before Dame.
Well, so we had the playoff drought and stuff before that. Yeah. And then between other than Roy, you're going back to, the Jailblazers era and stuff, and that was also a locker room mess and that kind of stuff. So, it was a while. That the team, the last good team we had with like Pippen and Steve Smith and stuff, like obviously Pippen, was a 6-time champion. So like you're going to command respect and all that stuff in the locker room
sure.
And but like the Blazers, and that's why, I do, because Tori and I get pushback on this when people are like, oh, you have to have a vet mentor and stuff like that, like with Brogdon last year. But like, we don't think that player needs to be someone you're paying like 20 or 30 million and, taking a spot on the roster. It could be a end of rotation guy or even a bench guy that you're paying a minimum to. So I think
like Tori said, Udonis Haslam's a great person for that position.
Right. So you do need those kind of guys. I think every team should have a couple of them. I forget what year it was, but we had like Jared Jeffries or someone, and I think it was Roy that said, or it might have been, or was that Dame's rookie? It was Dame's rookie year. Yeah. And Dame would talk about like just how much he learned about being a professional or like playing defense or things like that from a guy like that. So like, you do need those kind of people. And once again, I don't know if we really have them on the roster because like I think Jeremy's the only 30-year-old we have on the roster, and he's one of our main players, but he's also one of the guys where if you're taking a lot of shots and stuff and you're not producing a ton, it's also like, why should I listen to you? So I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
Jerry Grant doesn't care about winning.
Yeah, so we do need to find that guy. I think it would be good to have. Whether it's like a third point guard or just someone who can sit with Scoot on the bench when he's not in the game and just pick his brain about what he's seeing and stuff like that. But I don't think we have that on the roster.
Yeah, it wasn't Jared Jeffries. It was the point guard from UCLA.
Jared Jeffries too. Jared Jeffries was on
Earl Watson.
Yeah, both of those guys were Dame is credited with being good mentors.
Okay. Yeah. I remember him talking about Earl Watson. I loved Earl Watson back in the day. Anyway.
Yeah, that's like the perfect example of that third point guard, though. Veteran minimum third point guard, Earl Watson was that for Dame. You get a similar guy like that for Scoot. I agree with Eric. Anyway, man, good to meet you. Thanks for your call. Thanks for your questions.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yeah, have a good night. We'll go to Corbin, and then we'll go to Will, and then we'll wrap up our calls. Corbin, you've been invited to speak. Oh, that was so quick. Nice. Good job, Corbin. It only took 2 seconds, man.
I was on standby because I don't have much time to talk.
Yeah, sorry. I know you've been sitting in here for a while.
No, it's fine. I was actually working out, and I was listening to you guys the whole time, and I made it back home.
Nice. What'd you work out today?
My back, my chest, and biceps.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I'm starting to take working out seriously this year. So
is this a New Year's resolution?
Hey, man, do it.
Yeah. Is this a New Year's resolution for you?
Oh, yeah. No, it's just actually, no. I've always played sports growing up. Yeah. So I just like to take care of my health rather than like the physical part. It's not the aesthetics. I just wanted to take care of my body. But I feel that. Yeah, I mean, just a quick call in just to tell you that you guys got more supporters from Korea. Eric, I heard last video that you had some supporter come up to you and tell you that he's. Dude, I was like, wait, hold up. I thought I was the only guy in Korea who listens to the Uprise podcast.
That's funny.
So
you should find them.
I just want to tell you.
You live in Korea right now?
Yeah, I'm in Seoul right now.
Yeah, dude, I don't know where it's at, but this guy said there was like a Blazer fan club that they meet twice a month or something like that, and yeah, so
you got to get in that fan club, man. You got to become a part of that thing.
He said they lost like 20 people when Dame got traded, but yeah, you should try to find it.
I have a group of friends who I play not like a official rec league, but we have like a team that we play like every other week.
Oh, nice.
And most of the people around here, like, I don't have Blazer fans with me, right?
Yeah.
So all my close friends are like diehard Laker fans, diehard Golden State fans, and you know how that is for me, being a Blazer fan since I was like in elementary school. So it would be nice to get to know more Blazer fans, but I mean, maybe it'll happen. Anyways, I mean, I got to cut this really short. Just want to tell you guys are awesome. You guys are really, really. You guys know what you guys are talking about. It's really good for me because it changed the way I watch the game. And yeah. I mean, just giving you guys your flowers.
Thanks,
man. And yeah. And just one quick request, Tori.
Yeah, what's up?
Dude, you gotta release more videos of those like breakdowns that you did. Like you released for Scoop.
The film breakdown. Yeah, no, I wanted to release.
I know it's like probably tedious.
Dude, the Scoop video.
Sorry, go ahead.
I forget how long that took me. That might have taken me like 30 hours for that one video. So I really wanted to do like more of those. I actually did like. I had Krish help me, and I paid Krish. I don't know if you know him. He's big on like Blazer Twitter. He does a lot of cool edits, helps me with some of the graphic stuff. I actually built like graphics, like post-game thumbnails for like 10, 11 different players. Did the Scoop video, and I was like, dude, how am I going to do it? I actually had so much – I had a ton of footage saved from a bunch of other players. So there was a ton of hours that went into stuff that didn't even end up getting published. Just ultimately ended up doing more with my day job basically, and the things I do with Hog Media, and it just became too tough. And then this year I was like, okay, I'm gonna save footage throughout the year, but they shut down the website that I used to get the footage where you can sort by like player and types of play. The NBA shut that down. So yeah, I don't know. I would love to, because that video was really fun to put out, and I'd love to do more film breakdowns. It's just, it takes so much time, man, that it's just really hard.
Yeah, listen, I mean, watching, I could already tell. Like, I mean, I do, like, I work on Premiere and, like, use all that stuff, too. So I could, like, watching, I could tell, like, this is, like, it takes a lot of work. It just, it would be nice if you could, like, release a couple of those by the end of this year. Or by the end of the season, sorry.
Yeah, I'll probably... I mean, if they have that website back up, I think maybe not for every player like I was planning on doing, but just Scoot, I think.
Right,
because Scoot especially would be cool to show his improvement compared to that video last year where you could watch, parts of the first video of his rookie season and then parts of the second video and, like, actually compare the improvement. So I will try my best to do that with Scoot especially. I think maybe Sharpe obviously would be a good one to do it on, and then I don't know, Klingon being the rookie, maybe on him, but I think everything's just like kind of very obvious with him. So whereas with Scoot, it's a little bit more like it needs more of a breakdown, to say. So I'll try. No promises. It's just really tough.
It's just like the mechanic.
Go ahead.
Yeah, with those videos you get to watch. Sorry, go ahead.
Nah, you're on like a 3-second delay.
No, that was it. I mean, anyways, I gotta go.
Nice,
but again, you guys are awesome. Yeah, I think I don't mean to like talk over you guys, man. I feel bad.
No,
No, you're good. There's just a 3-second delay between I think when you hear us and when we're talking, so it's just like a little weird in that regard. It's probably the fact that you're in Korea, so it just takes more time to send the feed through or something. But yeah, there's a little bit of a delay. I've been trying to work with that, but no, we appreciate your call, appreciate the compliments, and I'll try my best just for you to get you at least a Scoot one after the season.
Yeah, man. All right, you guys keep killing it, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Have a good night, man, or good morning, or whatever time it is.
Good good evening. Thank you.
See ya. All right, we got Will. Let's see here. There we go. And then we got Will, invite to speak. Will, your invite sent. And then we'll wrap up this call-in night. What's going on, Will? We got people joining properly today. So I feel like it was just the last call-in night we had people that couldn't really figure out how to accept the invite. So I was wondering if it was a problem with Discord or something. But nah, we had no problems tonight, which is beautiful. Will, what's going on, man?
What's up, fellas? Long-time watcher. I've been interactive with you guys a lot, too. And sorry my voice is croosed because I got pretty sick lately. But
Are you Will Nixon?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes, sir.
What's up, man? Good to meet you. Sorry about your voice.
Big fan of y'all. I share a lot of no worries there. Share a lot of y'all's opinions. I really like the show and everything. I have been slacking this year on keeping up with Blazers though. I mean I probably watched way more last year than this year, but so sorry if I missed some of the shows and if you guys have mentioned this already, but I was just kind of curious on your guys' thoughts on just the NBA in general this year, who you think, has realistic chances of winning. Just something, like more so around like stuff around the NBA, maybe like Jimmy Butler, where he might end up. Any thoughts on that?
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, we're probably going to get into this for a little bit in a minute, but it looks like Memphis has become the favorites for Jimmy Butler, and they rested a bunch of guys today. We'll see if that happens. It seems like the Heat want to get something done relatively quickly right now. So that's going to impact this conversation a lot. But I don't know if you saw this today or not, but I forgot who it was according to, but someone said that both the Thunder and Kings were heavily pursuing Cam Johnson. And so I did a deep dive into the Thunder, and they could give up Topic, who's obviously not even playing for them, and Kenrich Williams and Ousmane Dieng, who aren't really part of their main rotation right now. And they could do that for Cam Johnson, give up whatever picks they need to make that happen, and basically add yet another stud rotation level player for not giving up any part of their core or anything like that. Stay under the tax. They could promote AJ from two-way to the regular roster and have enough money to sign someone else in the buyout market. And I think that would be insane. I think the NBA better hope that doesn't happen.
I feel like that's too good to not happen, though, because they have all these picks. They can trade whatever. I feel like they're not going to be married to not trading a pick or two. Like, they're going to be willing to do that for the perfect role player, and he is perfect for him. So
yeah,
you're going to have an arms race in the West, man, if you get Jimmy Butler to Memphis, right? They're trying to get to the point where they can beat OKC, and I feel like they think they need playoff Jimmy Butler to be able to beat OKC because OKC looks really good. I know OKC lost to Dallas last year, but they got good playoff experience, and those young guys are going to be another year better, and they added good vets in Caruso and Hartenstein. So the Thunder have an easy time upgrading their rotation even more, like making a Cam Johnson trade that I think if you're sitting there as Memphis, it's like I think they're clearly the second best team in the West right now. They've been pretty good despite their injuries. So I think those two teams are, I think both those trades will happen. I think Jimmy Butler will end up a Grizzly. I think Cam Johnson will end up an OKC Thunder. And I think those two teams are going to be in an arms race with each other to win the West.
Yeah. Kind of a side question I thought of. Let's say if our front office / ownership finally decides to change or become competent, things go perfectly for Portland. Let's say in the next 2 or 3 years, we're actually developing really well, maybe getting in the playoffs. I don't know what year we would hit our prime. I don't know if that's 4 years, 5 years from now, but Do you all see us, even if everything goes really well, able to surpass Oklahoma City or San Antonio at that point? Because I feel like those teams would be the powerhouses around then.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Because OKC just has so many future assets, they'll be able to trade for a star if one becomes available. Like if Embiid ever becomes available, nothing's stopping from OKC trading for him and then sending him half the games for a season. Man. It might not make sense for him, but that's just a perfect example of a star that could be available in the future, right? It could be somebody else. But they won't need to, right? They're already really, really good. So it's like, is there a star available that makes them even better? That could make them a dynasty? I think that's a conversation for OKC. I think if you're Portland, the goal, it's a pretty impossible goal to become better than OKC. I just don't see how it's possible for them to do that because OKC could have like high picks in the next couple of drafts because they have unprotected picks from teams. So, and they're already as good as they are, right? So it's not really about that. It's about becoming good enough to capitalize on like if SGA got hurt or let's say the Thunder just had a poor shooting series, right? Can you take advantage of that to maybe beat them in a series because you're probably never going to be favored against them if you're Portland, but can you take advantage if the cards align, right? The stars align. And, you know, it's not – I wish we could have a situation as good as theirs, but you've seen like Toronto won a championship because the stars aligned, right? Like look at the injuries the Warriors had in that NBA Finals. So you just want to be able to be good enough where if things go in your favor, which a lot of times to win a championship, you have to have things go in your favor, then hopefully you can actually – be competitive enough to beat them if that happens. Is that how you would view it, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, the way Wemby's playing, it also feels like if they have any sort of competency that they're destined to be right up there too.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can be scared. I think you still have to look at it like, well, you got to put forth the best version of yourself too.
Yeah.
I mean, what should we do? Set up for 2035 right now to like get better, like, you know, like we can't really do that. So I do think well, one, you got to hope that you build a good team, and I still think you need the star obviously, but your best bet would be to build a team that has like a better, you know, 4th through 7th guy or something than they do. And then you hope, just like Tori said, that when attrition sets in a long season or whatever, that you just have a healthy year like the Kings had a couple of years ago and you manage to upset one of them or whatever. And I know that's just probably wishful thinking at this point, looking at both of their rosters. But I think you just put forth the best version of yourself. And so, yeah, it does seem kind of almost back to like the Warriors days where it was like, man, what's the point of making a trade right now because the Warriors are just going to beat us anyway. But I still think you got to try. And
the funny thing is we then played that Warriors team in the Western Conference Finals and had like controlling leads in 3 of the 4 games and got swept and barely lost. You know what I mean? Like, you have an extra piece there, could be a huge difference in that series.
I mean, KD was out.
But that's exactly the point. You know what I mean? Injuries can happen to anyone. I also think there is a chance that San Antonio might be harder to deal with than OKC because Wemby will eventually be the best player in the world. And the point behind that
might already be. Geez.
I know. Which I'm not surprised. The thing is, I'm not even surprised. Like we all knew this dude was going to be amazing. I mean, Portland. We just got unlucky. If we had freaking Wemby, we'd still have Dame. Wemby playing like this year, yeah, we'd be on cloud 9 right now. But I think the thing with OKC that might give them some trouble is when all these guys are on max contracts with the new CBA and how much it punishes teams for having a bloated payroll. Could they run into a situation where they feel like they can't hold on to all the top end pieces that they have? I don't know. I think there is a scenario where maybe you could see, and I think it's unfathomable right now, but it's like, oh, you can't keep all 3 of Chet, SGA, Jalen Williams, and then like you're paying Caruso $20 million a year the next 4 years, right? Like Hardenstein's making $28 million a year. At what point does the payroll become a problem where they maybe have to move off a really good player because of the salary they're making? And the funny thing is I think some people say, oh no, the new CBA is not that bad. That'll never happen. The thing is OKC's done it before when they traded James Harden. So that's what you have to hope for as far as they go. But like they would have so many assets if they traded one of those guys that they could probably like find their way into the top roster in the West with lesser paid players. Like they just have so much flexibility to handle whatever's thrown at them.
And that's the problem when you have that many picks like OKC does. They could just trade those guys and maybe reload if they get lucky on draft picks. So you got to hope that doesn't happen, I guess. And please don't let them get a top pick this year. Like,
Yeah, I agree. I think if we do find the star, I think we're at least in a better situation than the Warriors era as far as we have a little more assets and flexibility. But I guess we'll just see how it all pans out.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Elizabeth Allen said, OKC's money is fine for the big three without a doubt. Yeah, but I mean, if you're talking about them potentially trading for a like big time player in the future, and or if they get a high draft pick and have to pay that guy in the future, it might not be in the next 3-4 years, but we're talking about these guys in their prime. There's absolutely a scenario where OKC could run into some payroll trouble under a punitive CBA, the new CBA. So it's hard to envision it now, but when that's the whole point of the new CBA is when your team becomes so good, it's hard to maintain a grip on the league. It's still possible, but I do think it's harder than it used to be. So that's what you have to hope for as far as OKC.
Yep.
Anyway, appreciate your call, Will. Did you have anything else?
No, that was it. I'll hopefully be able to watch more this year as it goes on. But nice to chat with y'all.
Yeah,
Thank you, Will. Nice talking to you.
Appreciate you. And I'll also say this is the time of year, man. This is the time of year for the channel. You got the trade deadline coming up. Now is when we really get into draft prospects. The next game is against the Detroit Pistons, and it's a big board night. We have our third big board. Okay, we're going to go through our third edition of our big board. So a lot of draft prospect talk to get you guys prepared for the upcoming NBA draft, which will be very important for the Blazers, as well as trade deadline talk. Maybe the Blazers can get another pick, right? You got trades across the NBA. We'll have our trade deadline stream on February 6th, and we'll also go live if the Blazers trade any other vets. We'll go live as soon as possible. So now's a good time, even if you haven't been paying attention much this year. I get it. This team's 12-22. They're looking at another rebuilding year. It's still fun to see the progress of the young guys, but if you haven't been paying a ton of attention this year, now's the time. Now's the time to lock in, because a lot's going to happen in the next month that determines the future of this team, and the draft talk is going to be a lot of fun. And then after that, you got tanking time, right? We'll have fun on streams, but it's tanking for the rest of the season. So, or maybe they're pushing for a play-in, Eric. You never know. We'll see, but they're going to tank. But lock in, man. Lock in. Appreciate your guys' calls. We got Alex. Alex wants to. Okay, Alex. Well, very quickly, because we got to move on. But I want to know the Little Caesars experience, and I think it's our Discord that is lagging like 3 seconds behind. So, Alex, you've been invited to speak. Final speaker of the night, Alex Wolf.
Hey, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah. What's up? Man?
What's up, Alex?
Hey, so I just watched. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good.
Sorry, my connection's the best. I'm driving home. I just had a quick question. So I just watched the Detroit Pistons mollywop the Timberwolves, and I had an idea, an epiphany. So I've never been the biggest Julius Randle fan, and I just had a quick question. I remembered that the Wolves and that Karl-Anthony Towns deal over the summer got that Detroit Piston pick that eventually will convey. I think it's like 3 more years, and it's decreasing protections down to like top 8 or something. Would you guys do that pick and Randall for Grant right here, right now?
Oh, absolutely. Just because of the pick, and Randall, you're still put in the same position, but at least you get a pick out of it, right? But I don't think Detroit is going to essentially trade Cat for DiVincenzo and Jeremy Grant. Minnesota. I said Detroit. I don't think Minnesota is going to do that. So I think I don't even think they trade Randall for Grant straight up. So I think that's, if you're hoping for that trade package as a Blazer fan, that's a little bit of wishful thinking. I would just do it because at least you guarantee you get a pick out of Jeremy Grant, and it's not like your problems necessarily get worse. You just don't really solve them because you just replace Grant with Randall.
And then you just pray Randall doesn't pick up that option. But...
yeah. Maybe that's expiring. At least he has less years on his contract. So, yeah, pretty easily would take that. The pick that is being talked about, Detroit's first-round pick, is protected for selections 1 to 13 in 2025, 1 to 11 in 2026, 1 to 9 in 2027. And then if it's not conveyed by then, it turns into a 2027 second-round pick. I don't know what team that's – it says via Houston to OKC to New York, so it's Houston's second round pick, whatever. Detroit, that pick might convey this year. They're in the play-in right now. They are actually 9th right now and are 17 and 18, only a half game out of 8th. So I mean, maybe they play their way into the play-in. If they miss the playoffs, then that pick won't convey because it's top 13 protected. But if they play their way in, it would. So I mean, I would take that and hope they could play their way in somehow.
They're actually 12th.
Yeah, shout out to JV Bickerstaff. He's done a great job.
Yeah, for real. What were you saying, Eric?
I said Detroit's 12th right now, so even if they missed the playoffs, they'd be close to maybe having that pick convey.
Yeah, it's the West. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty close to – we'll take a look at Tankathon, and we'll look at where that pick is in a second. But, yeah, I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Great job tonight, guys. I just want to get that question in because it was something that I was thinking a lot of tonight, just seeing Randall just does not fit on that team at all. So I'm not sure how they're going to fix that before the deadline or if they even can. But, guys, this Detroit team is legit. They are coming. They are athletic. Asar and Rod Holland and Beef Stew and Durant and all these guys. This team is going to be a problem. The atmosphere in Little Caesars was electric tonight. But, yeah, great job tonight, guys. I just wanted to call in really fast before the stream ended.
Yep, appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for calling in. Drive safe.
For sure. Thanks.
Alrighty, so the thing is I've actually thought about this lately. Can you compare Portland's rebuild to Detroit's? We remember how bad Detroit was last year, but they have their star. They clearly have their star. That's the difference between Detroit and Portland, where they have Cade Cunningham and we don't have a Cade Cunningham, right? Because you got some intriguing role players there that help them win. Asar Thompson has 6 steals tonight, 10 points, 10 boards, was 5 for 5 from the field, right? You bring in Tobias Harris, you bring in Malik Beasley had 23 tonight, right? And that team works now. That team is probably a play-in team. They're definitely better than Charlotte. They're definitely better than Washington. Certainly everybody's better than Washington, but they're better than Toronto. They're better than Brooklyn. Philadelphia will play their way in. It comes down to Detroit for Chicago, I think, for that last play-in spot. Atlanta looks legit enough to stay in the play-in. Indiana as well. So I would love to see Detroit in a play-in. That'd be good for their fan base, and maybe that would be Portland's step next year. It's just tough because they got Cade Cunningham, I think they've solved that dilemma. Can Cade be the number one player on a contending team? I don't know, but at least it's an answer of I don't know instead of probably not or just a straight up no.
True.
So he's been phenomenal. Had 40 points tonight for the Pistons. Let's take a look at Tankathon. Let's do a Tankathon sim. Portland could probably get their Cade Cunningham in this year's draft if they get lucky enough, but winning tonight did not help, Eric. Winning tonight did not help. I'm not in that mode yet, but I'm starting to feel it creep in on me. Man, I kind of wish we played just as well, but found a way to lose some of these close games, I love the Scoot game winner. I wouldn't take that away, right? The Ant buzzer beater was cool, but it's they keep winning these close games. they keep winning these close games. Like if we look at the schedule, man. What did I say the other day? This last game, the score isn't correct. The Blazers won 105-102 tonight, but I think their last 4 wins they've won by 4 points or less, and then every loss, for the most part, is a 20-point loss. They lost by 8 to the Lakers, so they either get blown out or they barely win. They get blown out or they barely win, and their record is 12-22. So that's why they're like the second worst net rating team. We'll have to see where this lines up at the end of the year, but they're going to have to do some serious tanking if they keep winning close games. Your thoughts, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, there's been points in the last few seasons where we thought they were doomed for wins at certain points in the season, and they still managed a way to be absolutely dreadful after the All-Star break, so we'll see. We'll see.
True. Utah did win recently as well. Toronto has had some competitive moments. I think Charlotte, when they get LaMelo back, I don't know. Like you got an opportunity, I guess. New Orleans, if they get healthier. I mean, you do have some teams that could maybe be a little bit better, but I mean, you're looking at them. They're only a half game away from being 7th. I do think there's a cutoff here. Look at Phoenix in 9th, Eric. Look at Phoenix in 9th. Is Houston? We were worried about OKC getting a top pick, but this Philadelphia pick is top 6 protected, so it goes to Philadelphia if it's top 6. But this Phoenix pick is unprotected, and it's at 9 right now, and it goes to Houston.
I saw they were like, I think they started like 7-1 or something, and then they're like way under 500 since then or something. Like
they're in trouble. Their fan base is blaming their coach again. Which it's like, how many different coaches have you had? You had Monty and then, Vogel and now Bud?
Yeah.
So you're on your 3rd coach. I get it, but that team obviously has flaws. They can't defend. They cannot defend. Everybody, what's funny is we were praising Ishbia. Everybody's praising Ishbia for coming in and going for it and caring about the fan experience. But that team... You're starting to get dangerously close to, oh no, we have no option but to rebuild. We're not going to get as much back as we gave up for KD because of his age. And then what do we do with Booker? And we don't have our own picks and we're having to rebuild. Like, I feel like they are starting to stare at a cliff where they have to figure something out this year to be more competitive than they were last year. But I mean, like, the thing is they got swept in the first round last year, and it seems like, if anything, they've taken a step back. And it's like your whole goal is a championship. You got Bradley Beal, KD, and Devin Booker, and you're paying Bradley Beal like $57 million or whatever it is, like an obscene amount of money. You're trying to win a championship, but can you even make the playoffs?
People are saying that Gabe was going off about the coaches.
Gabe is what?
Going off about the coaching.
I always ask, like, what specifically? Because I sometimes feel like I'll be in the Suns Valley podcast live chats and people are in there criticizing the coach, and it's kind of what I say here. It's like, okay, what specifically about the coaching do you not like? And like people struggle to answer, and it's like, okay, but I know Gabe probably just wants them to play Bol. So Bol is not fixing that. Bol is not saving that. So I don't know. I'd be curious because I think there's definitely some legitimate things you could criticize Budenholzer for that maybe he's not doing right, but what are those things is what I'm curious about. So I don't really know, so I'll have to listen back and see what the critiques are, or I'll ask him myself. I'll probably just ask him myself. Let's simulate this lottery. Let's scroll from the bottom. 14 San Antonio, 13 Utah via Minnesota, 12 is Detroit, 11 is Sacramento, 10 is Chicago, 9 is Phoenix via Houston. It would have been funny if they moved up into the top 4 after that conversation. But are we getting another chalk tankathon? Because I'm tired of chalk tankathons. Just as long as the Blazers move up. At 8, we have Brooklyn moving down a spot, so I complained and we got some action. Who moved up? That was Philadelphia, huh?
Philadelphia moves in the top 4, which means they keep the pick because it's top 6 protected.
Yep. At 7 is Utah, which means your Portland Trailblazers moving to the top 4. Finally, we got another move up.
Let's go.
Portland, Philadelphia. Toronto moves down 2 spots. and Charlotte moves down 2 spots, and Portland's at 4. I accidentally slid too much. Of course we're at 4, though.
Washington, New Orleans, and Philadelphia left then.
Yep. Philadelphia's at 3. Washington's at 2. New Orleans is at 1. This cursor sometimes is like, will slide up way more than I'm trying to make it slide up, which sucks. But yeah, Portland's 4 again. We always get 4 if we move up. 3 or 4.
How is New Orleans worse than Washington now? That's so crazy.
Because
I know injuries. I know why. It was.
Yeah. Well, Washington's won 3 out of their last 10.
Yeah.
So Portland's won 4 out of their last 10. Look at us. We're mid again. We're too mid. We need to suck. We need to. Anyway, yeah, no, I just give me a top 3 pick, man. Give me a top 3 pick. I'll even take Ace Bailey at 3. I've had some worries about him, but he had a really good game where he actually got to the rim a couple times. I forget who they played, but had 39 points. Like, just give me a top 3 pick, please, or a top 2 pick. Like, I just 4 Eric. I think there's a tier between Ace Bailey and then Dylan Harper and Cooper Flagg. I think Cooper Flagg's starting to separate himself because he's had some good games recently, had an efficient day today. I think there's a cliff between 3 and 4. And if there's not a cliff, then it's because Jaku Chonis is legit. But I don't know, like, I am not sold on Jaku Chonis' star upside to feel as comfortable taking him as I would with, like, a Dylan Harper.
Yeah, he's really good, though.
He is really good, so, like, you take him, you know what I mean, if he's the top player on your board, but the thing is, I don't think he's big enough to play the 3. I know he's listed as 6'6", so, like, you could maybe envision, like, Sharpe, Scoot, Jaku Chonis lineups, and I think Jaku Chonis is a good catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, so you can maybe make that work, but I think Jaku Chonis is more 6'4", 6'5", not somebody you want guarding threes.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what you do there at 4. Honestly, I feel like if Cronin's there at 4, he'll find a way. Him and people, I think, overrate Schmitz just because he was draft express and people know who he is when you don't normally know the person in that role. I just feel like we would find a way. If we got the 4th pick, we would find a way to screw it up. I know that's me being pessimistic and negative, but that's when we take VJ Edgecombe. I would not feel like, honestly, at this point, it's like I don't feel comfortable with anybody left on the board there, Eric. I don't. I like a lot of these players for their upside, but I'm not as confident as I feel like I should be in a 4th overall pick. Demon plays terribly against better competition. Edgecombe, like, cannot make shots, and offensive game is super raw, and he's like maybe 6. He might be 6'3", not 6'5". Jaku Chonis I like the most. We'll talk about this more on our big board. Jaku Chonis I like the most, but I don't know. Do we like him enough to, like, prioritize him ahead of Scoot? I don't know. Trey Johnson doesn't get to the rim. Just doesn't get to the rim. And then you're into the tier with just guys that always will have question marks because now you're down to like 9, 10, 11. Like, I don't know. Who would you take there right now for the Blazers, Eric? This might not be the 4th person on your big board, but who would you take at 4 right now, assuming Flagg, Harper, Ace Bailey, or top 3?
Jaku Chonis.
You would take Jaku Chonis?
Yeah.
I would have a hard time not taking Jaku Chonis. Yeah, I would take Jaku Chonis as well. I don't feel great about it, though. You know? I like Jaku Chonis a lot. If it's a team that needed a point guard, I'd feel really good about it. And I know we shouldn't draft for need, but it's like it's so much easier with Dylan Harper where I can sit there and be like, yeah, that dude is – I'd be surprised at this point if that dude's not an all-star at least once in his career. Whereas, like, with Jaku Chonis, I'm more unsure, so I don't feel as good about it. Yeah. So. Jeremiah Fears. I mean, that's the Jaku Chonis problem magnified.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Fears played today against Alabama. I tuned in near halftime, and he had like a point. I'm not sold on Fears. He's good, but he shoots 30% from 3. He's 6'3" guard. Like, he's shifty, but not like a top tier athlete. Not at 4, man. I would not feel good about taking him at 4. No way. I mean, I don't know. I think Asa Newell might be the highest floor guy left. I have a feeling he's just going to be a good starting big pretty easily, like Lively is, but can he play the 4 next to Klingon? Do you think there's a chance that we should, if we were 4, we should consider Newell that high? Or is that just going to be too high no matter what?
Yeah, that's too high for him. Right now. I mean, a lot can change still.
Yeah.
I don't know if you take an energy guy at 4, though. Like,
yeah, but is he just an energy guy, or does he have upside?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the tough part with him. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, if the Blazers move down, then we really have to move up into the top 3 in this draft, Eric. This is not like last year. This is not like the year where you had Sharpe on the board. I think you have to move up into the top 3 if you're the Blazers this year. It would be such a game changer. And if you don't, maybe you could still get lucky, but it becomes a lot tougher. I'm talking myself into tanking mode. Damn it. Whoops. Anyway, next matchup. Go ahead.
I know this isn't a star player necessarily, but I watched Jalen Wells score 30 points last night, Tori, and it just made me go back to the Blazers trading the 34th pick for freaking cash. We had the 34th pick.
No, the 40th pick we traded for cash. The 34th pick, I think we got some seconds back.
No, we traded it for a second in cash, and then we traded that second for more cash. So we ended up trading all of them for cash, I believe.
Are you sure? I thought we got some seconds back. I'll have to look.
I thought we just traded it for cash, both of them. But anyways, I went back and was reminded that players like Jalen Wells could be a Portland Trailblazer right now because he was picked 39th. And, also right after us was AJ Mitchell and those kind of players. So good teams find those players. Bad teams trade away the opportunity to get those players. So it just makes me mad that we could have had a guy like Jalen who is showing a lot of promise here in his rookie year for Memphis, and would be nice to have that.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20 for sure.
But we said that at the draft. Like, we were pissed about trading that pick.
Oh, for sure, yeah, because you just want a chance at getting that type of guy, so you just take the chance for sure.
And we got so many people saying, "Why do you guys care so much about second-round picks?"
Yeah. So they traded the 40th pick for cash considerations and the 52nd pick, and then they traded the 52nd pick for cash considerations. Remember, that was the pick that was originally Golden State's, and then they got traded twice, and they got traded to us, and then we traded for cash back to Golden State. It was the Quentin Post pick. I think that's the pick you're thinking of, because I do believe we got 2 or 3 second-round picks for the 34th pick.
Maybe. I thought we traded the 34 for... I thought, because we had the 40th already.
Yeah, we had 34th and 40th already.
I thought we traded 34 for 52 and cash, and then we traded 40 for just cash.
No, we traded 40 for 52 in cash, and then we traded 52 for cash. We actually got second-round picks back for 34. Somebody verify that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what went down. I just found an article. I just found this article because I searched Portland Trailblazers draft day trades, right? And the news feed is giving me an article that says Blazers blockbuster trade proposal lands them De'Aaron Fox from the Kings.
Oh, yeah. Someone in chat was asking about that. Is it Scoot and Ant, I think?
The Blazers get De'Aaron Fox. They trade Scoot, Ant, Duopere through pair, a 2026 first-round pick, which is not possible, a 2027 first-round swap, and a 2029 first-round pick. That's freaking terrible. Doesn't even work. That's like the worst type of trade proposal. Like, why the hell would you trade that for De'Aaron Fox? He probably walks, and then you have to restart your entire rebuild. And you don't have your picks. Like, what the That's terrible. This is just... One of the sentences in this article is basically, one of the sections is, it hurts to trade away 3 first-round picks as a rebuilding team. But at the same time, Fox would get the fan base a player who they can rally around in the same way that they did with Lillard. So we draft Scoot to run Dame out of town and start a rebuild, and then we try and trade Scoot and Ant and assets for Fox so that we can rally around him in the same way we rallied around Lillard, although Fox is not as good as Lillard was. That would be that trade isn't possible, but like hypothetically, let's say it was. If the Blazers made that sort of trade, you would see me, and maybe you, Eric, rant in a way that we have never ranted maybe in our lives before. Like that would like, and people would be like, we got De'Aaron Fox. How are you mad about getting such a good player? Like, people wouldn't understand. That would be like the worst case scenario.
Oh, I freaking love it too. I know it's not possible, like you said, but if somehow we did trade our 2026 first,
yeah,
and then that's AJ DeBonsa, and then we lose out on him because we wanted to win 5 more games with Fox. Like,
yeah, and then Fox leaves in free agency. Yeah. I mean, they wouldn't make that trade without him re-signing an extension. Okay, sure, we signed him to an extension. What's the point? We're still not we want to give up all our assets, have no future assets, just to be a worse version of the Kings? Why? Why do we want to be a worse version of the Kings and give up assets to do so?
Guess who likes that trade idea?
I don't even want to. We need to not. No, this person is saying they want Sabonis. Or are you talking about somebody else?
Yeah. No, he said earlier that he liked the trade. He's talking about something different.
Yeah, no.
Trying to get Sabonis too, but yeah.
We have no assets, and we have a team that's probably not in the play-in, just like the Kings are. Like, it takes time to build. I mean, the Blazers should absolutely not go after a star yet. Like, I can't think of a single star where it makes sense for them to go after. Like, obviously, if you get Wembanyama, but I mean, like, stars that could be available. Anyway. Brutal stuff. Next game is Monday. At 4 p.m. Early games. Eric loves the early games. I hate the early games. But Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, we'll review our big boards on that post-game show. All right, and then, so that'll be an early stream, 6:30 p.m. start time for that stream, man. The 15 Eastern Conference games a year drive me crazy, Eric.
Yeah.
The thing is, I do get off work early. Like, I will only work till 4 that day, so I guess I get off work early. Well, I'll only work till 3:30 because we'll have picks against the spread. All right, we'll have picks against the spread on Monday. All right. So that'll be on our second channel, Blazers Uprise Podcast. If you don't know of our second channel, you need to check it out. Blazers Uprise Podcast. We pick spread lines for the day's games on Monday. So we'll pick this Blazers versus Pistons game. And then, of course, we'll have the post game after. But it's a large chunk of time. You know, I wish I could be out working out and streaming at the same time, like the guy who called in was listening to us during his workout, you know. Unfortunately, I can't listen to our own podcast when I work out.
Well, you could.
I mean, I guess, like, if we're being super literal, it would be possible to do it, but, I'm not going to do that. Sometimes I do wish, like, man, I wish I could be a listener of our own podcast, you know. there's times where I wish I could like go out and do something and listen to our own live streams, but no, we get the misfortune of being the YouTubers, Eric, of being the podcasters. So unfortunate. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, we'll be live 6:30 with the post-game show for that one, big board night. And then the upcoming schedule. We got, hold on, let me pull it up here.
Back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, I got to pull it up here. If my computer will let me. All right, so yeah, this is what we got. Ignore the final score of the Bucks game. I made this graphic while live streaming because I multitask. But you got the Pistons. On Monday, we get to see this Pistons team that Alex Wolf was talking about. They can get to 500 if they beat the Blazers, but I don't know. I have a feeling the Blazers are going to be competitive in that one. You got the Pelicans on January 8th. Eric, can we have an above 500 5-game road trip? Can we get as many wins on this road trip as we had? As many road wins on this 5-game road trip as we did the entire season before this?
Maybe. I'm not going to ever predict that, though, so I'll say no.
Yeah, If they lose the final 3 games of this road trip, I am fully embracing the tank. I'm going to be happy about it. I'm going to embrace the tank. If they win a couple, I guess I will embrace nothing. I don't know. I got to take this Christmas tree down today, so no more Christmas tree. But, yeah, we got Detroit, then a back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday against the Pelicans and the Mavericks, and then the Blazers come home Saturday. Then they'll have finally a stretch of 2 days off. And, yeah, that's the upcoming games for the Blazers.
I got a question for you, Tori, and chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so I told you I was looking into OKC's situation.
Yeah.
Let's just say for some reason they decide not to, or the Nets don't accept their trade offer for Cam Johnson, and it's closer to the deadline and they're looking for pieces to help them out this year. And they call and offer you for Robert Williams, the center Jalen Williams, and Nikola Topic. Do you accept that trade, or is that not good value in your mind?
I don't really want Topic.
Yeah.
I had my questions about Topic before the draft, and, he has this injury. I would not want to prioritize Topic over Scoot, and if you're not prioritizing Topic over Scoot, then you shouldn't prioritize him in a trade for Robert Williams, is how I would view it.
Yeah, at the same time he's injured. You could take it slow with him. Yeah, I don't know.
Would you take it?
I mean, that's the kind of young guy you could get back in a trade. I think it's the same thing we talked about with Devin Carter, who was injured until recently. Just someone that still has potential to pop, but has, relatively low value right now. So, I don't know. I wouldn't have an issue with it. He doesn't necessarily have to replace Scoot or anything. He could be our backup point guard moving forward. But I wouldn't mind it, since we're not playing Rob Will as a healthy scratch for the second straight game anyway. Might as well take a chance on the young guy. I think you can
get back a better value for him, and I just don't think Topic is going to have much value to you, because ultimately you're going to have to prioritize some guards. And if you're, I don't know, I guess you could take it slow with him, but it's just such a work in progress. I'd rather have the pick to draft a prospect that I would view similarly, but would maybe fit better with the core. Whereas Topic, it's I don't see him ever being a fit with Scoot. And it's you'd definitely have to trade Ant, right? Carter, he's 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", whatever, but he plays bigger than he is, and could maybe even be one of those small forward, against bench lineups that can defend and rebounds really well, and he's more of an off-ball guard, so I could at least see him playing with somebody like Scoot. He can do some things on the ball, but defensively he's really good. Shots a little bit of a question, but he's more intriguing in that regard, where Topic, I feel like, is just strictly a point, and Scoot is strictly a point. So,
yeah, like Taylor says, I'm not necessarily looking at it in terms of how they fit. I'm just looking to find players that have pop potential, and then you could make a move later with them. I don't know.
I just think you have to view it in terms of, like, how do I word this? You don't want a collection of young players, and you don't want a collection of young players that makes it hard to give all of them a chance to reach their potential, if that makes sense. And I don't know. I get that. You know, it's just like, how do you prioritize Scoot and Topic?
Well, I think you prioritize Scoot first, and obviously Topic might not even play this year, so you have a little bit of time to just ease him back into it.
Yeah, you know, I guess you can take your time, but it's just like, okay, you want to prioritize Scoot, of course. Are you able to prioritize Topic enough, right? Because we have the conversations about Scoot needing the keys to the offense. Like, Topic also needs the keys to the offense. And then it's like, if you make that trade and then draft a guard, then it's like completely kind of pointless, because Topic all of a sudden is your fourth guard, and that's if you trade Anfernee Simons. So, like, I just would not prioritize that type of trade.
Yeah.
Like, if you kept Simons and then drafted Jakub Chodis, like, Topic your fifth guard, you know what I mean? Like, how are you even making that work? It's just questions. So, listen, if that was the package for Jeremy Grant, maybe. If that was the package for DeAndre Ayton, of course. But for Robert Williams, I just feel like he has enough value that you can get something that makes more sense going forward. At least that's my hope. Hopefully that's the one veteran they're not screwed with in terms of trade value.
Fair enough.
Anyway, real quick shout out to end the stream. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the post-game show. I want to bring up their betting lines on the NBA champion Eric, just because I think it's interesting to look at the stuff before the trade deadline, okay? OKC plus 325. I think if they make that Cam Johnson trade, they are, or maybe should be, the favorite even over the Boston Celtics. Those two are the clear frontrunners. Everybody else is plus 1,000 or lower, but it could be a smart play to go for Memphis plus 2,500 right now. They're equal to the Phoenix Suns somehow. Equal to the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns are in 11th place and are 15-18, right? Memphis is tied for second, or right around second, and they're the frontrunners for Jimmy Butler. Their odds are going to get less in your favor if they trade for Jimmy Butler. Like, they're probably going to be between plus 1,000 and like 1,500, okay? So you can get in on the action right now at a pretty good line for the Memphis Grizzlies, and then hope they trade for Jimmy Butler, because I do think they will be a true contender that can win it all if they trade for Jimmy Butler. And I think plus 2,500 odds right now, if Jimmy Butler gets traded, is a really, really good line for the Grizzlies. And then if you combine that with a promotion, which is, of course, code YouTube150, and you'll receive a 150% deposit bonus on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two, up to 2,000. It's a great promotion to combine with this. And then if they trade for Jimmy Butler, then you're looking good. Of course, they still have to go out and win it all, which is easier said than done. So, you know, it's just trying to be smart in terms of, if you want to get in on some action, you know, root for a team in the playoffs, because obviously the Blazers are not going to make the playoffs. Then I think that's your recipe to have a little bit of fun. You know, just put down what you can afford and bet responsibly, and just put down as much money as you want to have fun with it and root on the Grizzlies the rest of the season. Or if you like another line there on the screen, then you can vote for that as well. But it's always interesting when a team becomes a front runner for a star and the odds don't catch up. It always makes sense to get in on the action a little bit early. So that's what I would look at. And I know people say, why would you want Jimmy, blah, blah, blah. He's insanely good in the playoffs. Like, he's always insanely good in the playoffs. Yes, I know he's getting up there in age, but Memphis doesn't necessarily need him. But if he's old Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, like, that team is insane. They defend really well. They got rim protection. They got all these really good role players. That team would be insanely, insanely good with playoff Jimmy Butler. So that's why they would want to do that trade.
Yeah, for those that don't know, their odds shot up earlier today in terms of Jimmy Butler's next destination. So A lot of people are speculating that they're the front runners right now.
Yep.
Also, we missed a donation from Hail Blazers earlier. $2 said Scoot had a couple of sick passes tonight, which I agree.
Thanks, Hail Blazers. Yeah, had some really nice passes tonight. Thanks for the donation. Sorry, we've been taking calls and talking about a lot, man. But Elizabeth Allen says Jimmy Butler wasn't last year. Okay, 1 year he wasn't. All right, and that doesn't mean he can't be good in the playoffs. If one bad playoff year meant you can't be good in the playoffs again, then Dame would have never started the rebuild for OKC. So that's who we should blame, Eric, for the impending doom the OKC is going to unleash upon us. We have Damian Lillard to thank. That the one, like, greatest moment as a Blazer fan resulted in the next super team dynasty for a division rival. Yeah. Isn't that tragic? Anyway, That's the last I'm ever going to put things in that context because I don't even want to think about that shot in that context. But
we can't even make one effing move to get him some help.
I know. It's brutal stuff, man. It's brutal stuff. Anyway, I will never make that shot either. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Anything else, Eric?
Thanks, everyone, for watching. Hope to see you on Monday, and have a good rest of your weekend, everyone.
Yep, Blazers beat the Bucks. They beat Dame. Of course, they'll see Dame in Portland at the end of the month, but they get their second straight win versus the Bucks. Anfernee Simons, clutch moments, 28 points. Really good performance from him. Cool to see him hit a clutch go-ahead and one layup against Dame in the Bucks. But the Blazers, 12-22 on the season now. 3 games left on their road trip. We'll have you covered every step of the way with postgame shows next Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So hopefully you can join for that. If you're into prospects, big board day on the next postgame show. That game against the Pistons, the 17 and 18 Detroit Pistons, starts Monday at 4. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the postgame stream. Appreciate their support as always, and I'm looking forward to some of the trade deadlines when they have them posted. Not the trade deadlines, the trade spread lines when they have them posted. It's always fun to look at those things. And maybe we'll get a Jimmy Butler trade tomorrow. We'll talk about that in the next postgame show. We're not going to go live if Jimmy Butler gets traded, unless it's to the Blazers. Could you imagine? I don't want to imagine that, but
Blazers facilitating.
Listen, if the Blazers facilitate anything, if the Blazers trade for a second-round pick in, cash, we're not going live, but if any players get dealt to or from the Blazers, we will start a stream. All right? That's the rules. So maybe the Blazers are a third team. I don't know, but we'll see what happens with Jimmy Butler. I have a feeling he's going to get traded within, the next 3 to 5 days, it sounds like. So it sounds like the Heat want to move fast on this. So get in on that action with the Grizzlies if you want to. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. We'll catch you on Monday with 2 streams, one on the second channel before the game, one postgame show after the game. Hopefully we can see you there. Shout out to everybody that called in. We appreciate you, and thank you to everybody who donated as well. Leave a like on the stream. It's the greatest way, easiest way to support the channel. And we're out of here. We'll catch you next time. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.